I just wanted to come in for a minute and let you know we're going to be having Michael Johns on here at 8 o'clock, and it should be really informative. Hopefully, going to teach us all how we can come together on a national level and win our country back. Um, so, United 24 Vote Red, we're a group of patriots that support the page. United 24 Vote Red. Hashtag United We Stand. And it's a page that we've built for people that want to volunteer or get involved in their communities, have a place that they can find links and info as far as how to join the GOP in their state or their local community, and laws about ballot harvesting in all the states, and how just how to get involved and start from the ground floor up, because that's what we need to do this election. We all know that now. We've been hearing it from all the spaces, all the space hosts, all the influencers, a lot of the politicians. We knew that anyway, but that's what we got to do. So just hang tight, and we're going to be getting going here in a minute.
With me?
Thank you, LD. Can everybody hear me okay? We're having just a little small issue.
Okay.
Hey guys, can you give me a thumbs up or something if you can hear me?
I can hear
Thank
you,
you,
Casey.
Happy. Thank you. Okay, guys, so welcome to the United 24 Vote Red space. It's good to see you, Heather. We've had Heather on before. She's great. Good to see everyone in the group. Good to see our listeners. We welcome you, and we're happy you're here. LD went over what what we sort of do. We try to get the information to get people involved. We try to get you motivated to get involved, to become a part of the actually to become a part of the Republican Party, not just to vote. If you're a voter, which we need voters, we got to have them. But if you're a voter, you're kind of like in the stands at a game, in the crowd, cheering it on. But to become an actual part of the voting party, we need your help. We need you to get involved. We need you to be a player. And by doing that, you get to actually vote for the things you need in your community as America First. So to get involved, you can get involved with your local GOP, which if you need that information, we'll be more than happy to get it to you. And we have a few really good tools that I'll put in the nest. You can become a precinct chair, which is very, very easy since there are more than 200,000 vacant chairs. And to do that, you just look up your precinct and you go down there, or you call them and tell them that you want to get involved. Don't tell them much. Don't say, "Hey, I'm a Trump supporter," or "I'm DeSantis," and that's the only person I'm voting for, da 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 da, that and this, and just go in there and say, "Hey, I want to help. I want to get involved. I want to help my community," and they'll take you in almost no questions asked. And if there's an empty chair, most of the time you just say you want it, and they appoint you the chair. So definitely, I'm fixing to put that information up there now. There's you can go to precinctstrategy.com. Another good a good tool you can use to find your America First patriots and candidates is the redwaveplan.org. That's another good tool. You have Scott Preser's the Early Vote Action app. So, and we need you to do this. We need to stick together. We need to get involved. We have to take back our country. Most of all, it's we the people. The government, they work for us, and people tend to forget that. But we the people are the boss. This is our country. And so tonight we have a special guest. We have Michael Johns, and we have somebody do an intro to him. But he's a co-founder of the Tea Party. He's a part of the Heritage Group. He's a great guy. He's done a lot. He's been a speechwriter for the White House, I believe, while Bush and while Trump was in there. I believe that I may get corrected on that, but so we're in for a treat tonight, and we're very glad everyone's here. So another thing I was thinking about earlier, I know everyone sees these posts, oh, they're calling for a civil war. There's going to be a civil war, and da 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 da, and everybody, they kind of get excited over it, oddly enough, and imagine how much we could change our country and take back the Republican Party if we had as many people, ready to jump in and go fight for the country. If we had them to actually just get involved with the party and take the Republican Party back and change it that way, that I just saw a bunch of tweets throughout the last few months where people really gravitate kind of towards that whole we're going to go to war and take our country back thing. So I think there's a lot easier and safer way to do it, and that's definitely by getting involved. So I'm going to go ahead and put a few things up in the nest. So there's 3 really good tools I just put up there. Also, we have our co-hosts tonight. We have the Happy Republican and the Brain. They're a great addition to our team. So welcome, and we're happy to have you here and helping tonight. And we're still about 10 minutes early, so just bear with us while we wait for the room to kind of populate. And as far as getting involved, the Democrats, they are actually planning on us doing nothing because we are conservatives, and that's kind of, we kind of want to stay out of it, and we kind of stand on the sidelines and say, well, that's good, or well, that's bad. That's exactly what they're planning on us doing, just kind of sitting here and taking it. So definitely, we definitely got to start fighting back, and not literally, but politically, by getting involved with your party and changing the party from within. And also, if you get involved with your GOP or become a precinct chair or something, there's a bunch of great tools they give you as well. There's a government site that gives you all the voter information and tells you, the stats on who's voted 50% of the time, 20% of the time, 80%. So that's another really good tool that you get if you could become involved. Go ahead, Brain.
Oh, I was just going to jump in and say, kind of piggy off what you said about precinct chairs being available and how easy they are to get. I am a GOP precinct chair in Oklahoma City, and they were so desperate. I mean, it was just like Casey said. I mean, I just went up there and said, okay, I'm willing to do it. And basically 10 minutes later, okay, there you go. I mean, I had to fill out some paperwork, but, no big deal. Now, the key importance into filling all these precinct chairs is we need to take over the county chairs and the state chairs. And the easiest way to do it is get enough of our America First people in precinct chairs to vote out those rhino, worthless, good old boy county chairs and state chairs. And that's how we can do it. So it's not that difficult. And you do get a lot of valuable information. Okay, you get voter information, registration information, voting records, voting trends, all of those things, which you can utilize within your own precinct or strategize with other precinct chairs in your immediate area on how to target potential voters or getting messaging out and those types of things. So, Yeah, exactly what he said, y'all. It's not that difficult. In some of your smaller locations, they're not as active as say big city or big county areas. You may have to try several times to get a hold of the county chair to find out about available position, but it's doable and it's worth it, you all. It's time to take our country back.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brain. He's 100% right. 100%. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay, right now we are gonna go ahead and we're gonna have Crazy Mama 66. She's behind the United badge as well as I. She's gonna do the intro with Michael Johns, and then we'll go ahead and get into
What?
it, and I'll kind of set the rules after she does that. So just stand by and enjoy the intro. Thank you. Go ahead. Okay, hang on. I cannot hear her. Let me see what we're doing real quick. Just gonna make sure she's available real quick. Just hang with us. Sometimes it's kind of hard when you start early to fill some of the dead air. Okay, go
Well,
ahead, LD.
all right, thanks. While you guys are doing that, welcome everyone. I see Heather, Joyce, Ludi, Dee. Wow, Constitution, Barbara, Terry and Mark from Let Our Children Go. God bless you guys. You're in every space we have. We love you guys, and we pray for you to get your kids back every day. And that's why we're all doing these spaces, to help fight locally so that what happened to you and your family doesn't happen to anyone else's family. So I just, before when I was talking, I was just actually giving a cheap plug for our new website, which is United24votered.org. It's a brand new website. It's been up about a week. We have on there uh, our old spaces all recorded. If you want to listen to some great old spaces we've had by people like Scott Pressler, Laura Loomer, Matt Couch, you can go on to our website and see that. We also have all the GOP information for every state, what it takes to get involved, and ballot harvesting stuff on there. We promote our future sites on there, and we have a volunteer page that we're just starting to get some information into. So hopefully it's going to be a real good access point for people who want to get involved locally. Please check it out. There's a blog or a newsletter page that, we'd love to hear feedback, suggestions. If people are volunteering and they're looking for a place to say what they did and maybe motivate other people to do what you're doing, you can use that blog, that newsletter on our website. If you have suggestions for our website, or if you know a candidate, America First candidate who needs some help, and you're looking for some support to help you out as far as make phone calls, get name recognition, that's what our group United 24 Vote Red is here for. We're actually helping Chris Rose right now in West Virginia. He's running for Senate in West Virginia, and we've been helping Vincent Vitimo in Pennsylvania, trying to turn that state red again. So, again, if you have ideas, phone banks, found a candidate, let us know. Go on our website or come right here on our page, United 24 Vote Red. You can always leave us a DM if you want to get more involved and don't know how to. You can certainly come to our page and DM the page or any one of us that are in the group. If you want to become a part of a group like ours, and I mean our group, and start doing some more volunteering or get involved, drop us a DM. We're always looking to grow our members and trying to turn this into a national kind of support thing, which is, you know, another reason we invited Michael to come on tonight. Hopefully he's going to tell us all how we can network nationally and take our country back, so we're not, you know, just all over the country doing little things here and little things there. Hopefully he's going to tell us how to get together and turn into one big bad monster and eat up that Democrat Party. So I think I just filled some dead air. Again, welcome everyone. It should be really exciting when Michael comes in. I can't wait to hear him. Thanks for coming, and I'm going to drop the mic.
Thank you, LD. Thank you. Also, really quick, everyone, if you would go ahead and retweet the space. Also, I put the website in the nest. So those four pages or 4 tweets I got in the nest, go ahead and bookmark those so you have them and you have them to share when you talk to other people. Those are some very important tools that we can use. So yeah, please go ahead and retweet the space so we can start getting people in here. And it shouldn't be long now. Brain, did you have, I saw your mic come off for a second. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh, not particularly, but I will. Now, one thing too is if you would like to become a volunteer within our group, we do have a group chat where we're all becoming very good friends. We bounce around ideas and things like that to better our space, better our mission, etc. So that's a definite plus. I'm telling you something, LD, Happy, Ludi, Joyce down there, all amazing people, good friends, and you'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it. We look out for each other. We take care of each other. We grow the space, and we come up with some really good things to do, and always trying to improve what we're trying to do and help anybody out that we can.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brain. Yeah, he's absolutely right. We do have a great group. If you are interested, please shoot us a DM. You know that we can't have too much help. You can never have too much help when it comes to your country. I like a shout out real quick. I believe MAGA Warrior down towards the bottom there. I believe he actually, if I'm thinking of the same person, he might actually be one of the election experts. So I believe I've heard him speak before. If so, welcome. We're happy to have you. And I see Michael Johns has just joined us. So welcome. We're gonna get you up to the speaker, and then we're gonna do an intro. Thank you. Okay. All right, we got him up. Okay, we have Crazy Mama 66 coming up now. Hey, Michael, we're happy to have you. We're really glad you're here. Thank you for lending us your time. And we're going to have Crazy Mama 66 come on, and she's going to kind of let everyone know who you are. We're really glad you're here. Thank you.
You bet.
Awesome. So I'm sharing the speaker here with Casey. So this is Crazy Mama. My name is Sherry, and I'm going to. I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Johns tonight. So
Okay, just
it's
hang on
been
one
about
second.
3 weeks or so since
Hopefully we don't have a
I've
problem with her
spoken
mic.
with our distinguished guest speaker, and
Hey, LD, do you want
has
to
agreed to
check on
join us
Crazy,
this
please?
evening. Ever since we spoke to him,
She's speaking.
Okay, can y'all hear her? I cannot.
Yes, everyone can hear.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
So I've been thinking about how best to introduce him, because of the magnitude of his accomplishments and the duration of them are very rare in American public policy and politics. But joining us this evening is undeniably one of the elite leaders of the American patriot and conservative movements. Each of you knows Michael Johns, but you may not know everything that adds up to his extraordinary leadership of movement and both the expertise and raw guts he has brought to the defining moments of our time. Michael Johns was born in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And that's important to know because Michael has told the story of watching Bethlehem Steel close down in his senior year of high school and how it first got him thinking about the challenges we confront and why we need to be more assertive in tackling them. In high school, he excelled in football and wrestling. And he has said before that it was the intensity of competing at a high level athletically that formed his character and determination before he entered public life. He attended the University of Miami in Florida, and the following year, just after reaching his conclusions that we did not do enough about Bethlehem Steel, his Cuban American friends and their parents told him of their persecution under Castro in Cuba. That, Michael has said, made him an anti-communist. And as an anti-communist in the 1980s, it also made him a Reagan Republican. He excelled at the University of Miami, serving as president of College Republicans, doing 2 internships in Washington, D.C., one with the National Journalism Center and another with his Republican congressman from Pennsylvania, Don Ritter. He was accepted into the elite summer program at the University of Cambridge in the United Kingdom, and he graduated from the University of Miami with an economics degree and with the highest of honors, the University affords. And while still in college, he was one of the very few Americans to visit with the Nicaraguan Contras, which were fighting the Soviet and Cuban-backed regime there. That's pretty impressive. Michael was accepted into law school. But he had no doubt that when he was what he was going to do. He joined the Reagan Revolution in Washington, D.C., serving first as an editor along with Dinesh D'Souza of Policy Review magazine, the flagship publication of the Heritage Foundation. That is where Michael got his start at the same time and place where Dinesh got his start, and they worked closely and are friends. Later, another guy you might have heard of joined the staff. Tucker Carlson also began his career at the magazine, serving as a fact checker. After 2 years, Michael was promoted to foreign policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation, where he led the foundation's Reagan Doctrine initiative and really turned the theory of the Reagan Doctrine into reality. He again visited with the Contras in Nicaragua, and he visited with an anti-communist resistance movements in Angola and Cambodia. He was instrumental in building support for the Afghan resistance, which ultimately drove the Soviets out of their country. Michael has made a series of bold predictions throughout his career, often taking positions not then widely held, but each has proven accurate. And this was his first. In the late 1980s, Michael returned from these Cold War battlefields and began speaking openly about the fact that a seismic shift was underway, that the United States would win the Cold War because the Soviet Union was being overextended by these conflicts. He predicted that we were a year or 2 away from the entire collapse of the Soviet Union. Many so-called experts on the Soviet Union scoffed, but in 1991, that is precisely what happened. Michael then served as a senior aide to New Jersey Governor and 9/11 Commission Chairman Thomas Kean.
What's up, guys?
His work caught the attention of the then President George H.W. Bush, who immediately hired him as his White House speechwriter, and Michael helped overhaul Bush's messaging when it was very much needed. Michael then was hired by the International Republican Institute, where he was director of global program development and developed U.S. government programs around the world to help strengthen emerging democracies in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, and Latin America, the Middle East, and the former Soviet Union. He also served as a senior aide to a very moderate Republican, U.S. Senator Olympia Snowe. And then he left Washington after being recruited into healthcare management. He served in management capacities with 2 Fortune 500 healthcare corporations and was part of the executive management team of a third one, the nation's largest home health and specialty pharmaceutical company, where, among other things, he managed investor relations for this NASDAQ traded company. He also served as a senior aide to a very modest Republican. Okay. So Michael had the habit of watching CNBC before work each day. And that meant he saw the now famous Rick Santelli Tea Party rant on the network in 2009. Michael shared the view with a group of fellow conservatives around the nation who had concerns about the direction of the nation under Obama. A conference call was scheduled the following day, and the Tea Party movement was born in February 2009 and went on to block Obama's agenda by winning a historic 63-seat win in the U.S. House in 2010, the largest such victory since the 1930s. And he led the 2014 victory in the Senate and helped found the Congressional Tea Party Caucus, which is now the Freedom Caucus. In many high-profile speeches and media appearances, and in his conversations with fellow Tea Party activists, Michael made his second bold prediction that the Tea Party movement would grow in size and influence and would take back the nation. Like his prediction on the Cold War, some experts scoffed at that prediction, but it is exactly what happened. The House fell in 2010, the Senate fell in 2014, and the populist, rally-based tactics of the movements were noticed and praised by a New York City real estate developer named Donald Trump, who later adopted rallies as the center of his long-shot campaign for the presidency in 2016. And that was Michael's third amazingly bold but accurate prediction. On day one of Trump's candidacy in June 2015, Michael was one of the few nationally recognized political names and conservatives to not just endorse Trump, but to describe his victory as both inevitable and essential. Fellow conservatives laughed and scoffed, but they were not laughing and scoffing any longer in November 2016. As Michael has gone about all of these things and many more, he has maintained humility and has tried to embrace principles that he believes are necessary for us to mount a comeback. He believes our movement is now in total disarray and not really even a movement, but a bunch of individuals largely doing their own thing and predictably failing. Michael Johns joins us tonight, and I am so excited. We have been needing some direction, and Michael Johns, thank you so much for coming in, and I am going to drop the mic for you, sir.
Okay, hey, it's a great honor to be with you guys. I've appreciated everything that I've seen, everything I've heard about your work, and it seems, to start out, like you've reached, I think, in a lot of ways, the conclusion I've reached, and that is that what we've traditionally called the conservative movement is not functioning really as a movement, and really hasn't been for 10 years. And the ensuing result of that has been the march of this globalist left in taking over literally every institution of civil society and putting this country at the breaking point. By the way, I always have this issue with the speaker being on. Is there a way to turn the speaker phone off on Space? on Spaces.
So, so Michael, there is. So if you want to,
Is the audio okay? I mean, I don't need to. It's all right. I just want to make sure you hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear you just fine, Michael. Thank you.
Okay, I'll leave that as is. So look, we are at this defining moment where the instinct of both individuals looking on and good Americans, I believe, well over 75% of Americans see the absurdity of what's transpiring. They don't necessarily know what to do, but the instinct is to take the rage out on the other side that's winning. And I sort of start tonight by saying that is not effective. It's not going to impact the other side. The other side has seen long ago that there was not a sufficient amount of resolve on our side or commitment to prevailing, and have become incredibly bold, and they are immune to this sort of criticism. And that, so that brings you really to the conclusion of where is the problem and what do we address? We need to fix our own side. And that starts really by, in an age of pronouns, I think stopping the use of two pronouns. There should be no I, and there should be no they. There's only we. And as disturbing as it may be to have to say this, all these things that have transpired have happened on our watch. We are responsible. So it's not like we have had a considerable opposition that's been put up and we've lost this battle. I think in those cases, we go back to the drawing board and say, how do we improve a little bit? We have not, for the most part, even shown up. And I can go through, basically issue by issue, institution by institution. Sadly, this too has become, I think, part of the swamp that needs to be drained. So we talk about the swamp, we think about the compromised administrative state. We think about the influence of foreign governments that have gained great foothold inside the Beltway. And we think in terms of, maybe career bureaucrats who have become lazy and not really focused on the challenges at hand. And I think it goes way beyond that. I think there's very few institutions or individuals who are immune to this go along and get along uni-party approach that leaves us, and today's a great example to talk about it, with this absolutely disastrous McCarthy deal on the debt limit, with nothing but defeats. And so I realize that's all negative. It's difficult to hear and process, but I'm going to ask you to process it, because that, once you process that intellectually, it brings you really to the next step, which is that we can't go on like this and expect that somehow miraculously the outcomes are going to change. We have a clear leadership and crisis. We have an operational crisis, and we are not even functioning really in the ways of the 21st century, in the ways these battles are manifesting. We're still addressing them as if they're battles of ideas. Let me just point this out, we've won more elections than we've lost in this century, and we have, as I said, 75% plus won the battle of ideas, and yet we're on the verge of losing the country. To process that, you have to realize that the operational side of this movement and its institutions have failed us. And so those institutions can either be reformed and the leadership crises can be addressed, or we need to start speaking some honest truths about the fact that, however they describe themselves as conservatives, as limited government, freedom movement, whatever they say, they are not delivering. All these defeats have happened while they've been very well funded, while they've had every resource that they could possibly imagine. But they did not have the guts, they did not have the strategy, they did not have the collaborative instinct, they did not formulate the unity, and they never held people to account. So, for instance, if you said, which would be true, that 95% of academia in this country has fallen under the control of the globalist left, that it's literally been penetrated in the United States by China's Communist Party, who on our side was responsible for maybe making sure that didn't happen? Apparently, no one's been fired over it, which leads you to the conclusion maybe nobody was ever really in charge, or everybody was sort of in charge, which we all know what that means. No one was really ultimately in charge. So the general accountability that all of us would bring to managing a corner store have not been brought to this, the grandest struggle perhaps in the history of the country, and certainly since World War II, where we correctly say the future of the nation is on the line, but then we don't bring the game that would accompany that. We don't bring the leaders that would accompany that. We don't bring the operational tactics that would accompany that. And then when we predictably fail, we don't hold anyone to account. Those are the four themes that I'm trying to hammer home here at, I think, before this 24 race heats up, that we need collaboration, meaning we all need to be talking and benefiting from each other and soliciting the best of ideas. I appreciated that generous introduction. I think the idea that I bring here tonight is that I think I've observed what's transpiring, but there's a range of options available to us. And I don't pretend to have a monopoly on those solutions, but hopefully this gets us all thinking about them in those terms, that these defeats are not ones, we need to stop looking at George Soros, stop looking at the World Economic Forum. Yes, they're winning, but they're winning because we have allowed it. And you can look deeper into why have we allowed it. You can sit around and speculate. You can come up with conspiracy theories that may even be true about the mechanisms and reasons why all this has occurred. But ultimately, I keep coming back, and I think we all need to keep coming back to the reality, the real conclusion. And the real conclusion is that we have a leadership crisis. We need the institutions, even the conservative media on our side, who certainly since the fraudulent 2020 election have been just hauntingly silent and ineffective on these gross abuses that we've confronted. And they continue to fail and then document these failures in books, in podcasts, in documentaries, in movies, in TV shows, in radio and shows. And then we look at these people that are documenting our failures as leading the movement. No, they're not. They're simply putting a mirror up to what's transpiring. What they are doing is narrating the defeats of our side. Well, none of us got in this to lose, I would hope. And the country cannot afford any more losses. So in a world where we need wins, the starting point is to say, okay, who's been on the watch? Who's been in charge when we've experienced these enormous defeats? Because they either need to go or they need to make at least some concessions about the ineffectiveness that they brought. And then we need to make sure we have a strategy in place. I mean, if I asked you right now, what is the conservative movement strategy? Well, you got a few different sects who might have something assembling a strategy, but there is no holistic adopted strategy that we're operating on. People are being motivated by emotion on the grassroots level in ways that I think expend energy, maybe make them feel better, but don't ultimately change much. And worse yet, for those who do have resources within the Beltway, they're functioning in ways that appease or please their donors or show that they are on record opposing some things, but they're not bringing the operational tactics, and I think are choosing not to actually win these battles. So just kind of closing my opening here, and we'll dive into some details, because let's think about these. If you're a sports fan, this will make perfect sense. All right. If USC plays UCLA and USC wins, UCLA doesn't come off the field and blame USC for winning or expecting to win. You kind of go into the game knowing that that's what they're going to do. But it's worse than that. I really think you have to look at it in terms of saying USC had a game plan. USC practiced the whole, that week for the game and the whole season and the off season to prepare for it. And UCLA had no game plan, and they didn't even really show up as a team. They had a few individual guys, maybe a kicker, a quarterback, a wide receiver, the guys running an out route, and the quarterback throwing a screen pass. And just, you would never walk off the field with a defeat like that and blame the other side. In fact, you might look at the other side and say, we have some things we can learn about the way they approached it, which is clearly more successful. And in the political world, this is no different. We don't have the strategy, the operational infrastructure, the metrics and accountability, and then the unity that we need to be able to have these holistic, extensive, significant, transformational turnarounds that we need at this point. Because I believe, we're at the point where the sovereignty of the nation has been compromised, where the institutions that we would historically 50 years ago have turned to help us, get the American people thinking straight about these issues and getting involved, are actually part of the problem, almost without any exception. And we've been played basically we've been engaged in this chess game. The other side has been making, very sophisticated moves, and we have just sort of sat there as big piece after big piece has come off the board and cursed the other side, as opposed to coming up with what we need to do. So this is a time for accountability. It might be a time I would like to not do this in a way where we're having to call people out, because there's a certain culture in politics where, someone else is a conservative or they're a Republican, or, they affiliate with us, at least in theory. You don't call them out in public, right? I mean, that was even Reagan's 11th commandment. But Reagan's gone and the country's nearly gone. And if quiet discussion on these issues is not going to get it done, then we need to start calling it out. There was no shortage of resources available, for instance, for us to have prevailed on, let's just take what we're dealing with present tense, on this debt increase. And to come out of there with this agreement, which is an absolute disaster. All right, it puts the budget on autopilot. It's got, it opens the door for more omnibus bills, $4 trillion in debt. You got, there's a representation I'm hearing from some members saying, the appropriation process might, no, you don't fix this in appropriations. Once the debt limit's been increased, it's done. And I see almost no tangible savings. And the representation on the IRS alone is just, absurd. They take like maybe 1.4 billion out of an $80 plus billion allocation there. You leave the lion's share of it, and with the flexibilities that exist in budgeting, you're talking about a vast extent. You have a vast extension of the administrative state in this budget at a moment when we needed to hold the administrative state accountable, and that the only real way to do that, given that we can't federally prosecute even criminals with this Justice Department, was through the financial leverage of fortunately having won the House. I think now you're going to have Biden run for re-election in 2024, and he's going to be able to say, hey, look, I put this financially responsible, deal together on the debt limit, and Kevin McCarthy supported it. It's politically bad, but this is like not about politics. On the policy basis, with the direction this economy is headed, with the inflationary pressure, and with the policy changes, the policy adjustments that have been at the core of the Fed, it would just clearly, it's another major defeat. And I don't want to dwell on this one because there's so many, it's absurd. And I believe it starts with that 2020 election. How is it possible, let me just ask this question, that Ronna McDaniel, the head of the Republican National Committee, has neither affirmed nor disaffirmed the thesis, very credible thesis held by the former president, Donald Trump, that Biden's illegitimate? She had more resources than anyone, almost $1 billion on election integrity alone. Did a horrific job in the follow-up and in legal management of those cases in many states. And to this date, not only has neither affirmed nor disaffirmed that thesis, but has been allowed to dodge the question, which raises the question, well, where is this conservative media that we had to go create a whole conservative media industry almost, because we couldn't control keeping the existing mainstream media honest. But even they aren't presenting those questions. I don't believe she's ever been asked. And then you go on to all these so-called conservative institutions that have raised boatloads of money about their commitment to the Constitution. And we got a knife right in the heart of it. And whatever their conclusions, I believe that, say, the Navarro report were inaccurate, you'd see the Navarro report rebuttal. There is no Navarro report rebuttal because the Navarro report's pretty solid. So they've had the best of both worlds. They can tell the 80 million or so MAGA supporters, imply that they believe Biden's legitimate, while simultaneously telling their K Street and major funding sources that they believe he is legitimate. But they're not on record on either one of those. It's maybe the most graphic example of what I'm talking about. That's a leadership crisis.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very, very much. It's crazy. We have people like McDaniel that's getting paid millions, and she's doing literally nothing. And we have people like Scott Presler that's in here. He's out there doing all the legwork, and he's not. I don't even think he's a paid member of the Republican Party yet. I hope he gets there, and best of luck, Scott.
It's absurd that we're having to rely on people outside of the establishments that exist to do this work, and we shouldn't be making our peace with that, right? We shouldn't have the pillow guy leading the charge. That's not his expertise. Scott's filled with energy, but I don't know if anyone's taken a close look at what the ramifications of his efforts have been. I mean, we've clearly had a lot of losses on his watch as well. And I say that as in sharing your sentiment of fondness for him. And I, by the way, was one of the first, I believe, to call him and tell him that. Because I think that's what leadership is all about. When people are doing the right thing, you call and you tell them that. One of the first questions I had for him was the obvious one. Has anyone from the Republican National Committee picked the phone up and called you? I asked him. And I think he was in Pittsburgh, and there was a lot of background noise. But he said, no one was calling me. That really kind of solidified my view on McDaniel as a complete failure. And the fact that she has been granted now another term with the colossal defeats that she has overseen tells me not just that we aren't doing our job, but the structural system that is in place is not designed to reward and to hold accountable the people we're relying on to do this work. That's a pretty terrifying recognition in a lot of ways. And if you get into the national security component of it, it's really terrifying. But when we can no longer rely on voter integrity, when we can no longer rely on high-level U.S. military decisions like Afghanistan withdrawal to be done competently and correctly, when we can no longer rely on even an effort to secure this border because they don't want it secure, the problem runs deep on their side. But we can't fixing their side requires first fixing our side. And so far, I have to be honest, I think if you look at the weaponization of government and the promises that were made in the 2022 election, that the House has had some interesting hearings, but they are not bringing the A game that we need. They're not even bringing it in the communications component, in the way things are being described, or in the prioritization of how you would go about something this vast. Because look at all the issues in front of us. And I didn't even mention the pandemic, the CCP released pandemic from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and then what appear certainly to be vaccines that were rushed to market with components that have proven enormously deadly. We don't even have the metrics to be even measuring the magnitude of damage from mRNA. Though we've got a number of bold people out there that, fortunately are at least speaking the truth about what's both anecdotally and on their own basis statistically. But we're doing workarounds here, is my point, right? We're having to turn to people and organizations we wouldn't typically turn to, except that not only have we lost every institution in this country at this point. I used to say, well, we haven't lost the military, but look at all the woke nonsense going on there at the expense of being prepared militarily for the magnitude of CCP threat that I think is emerging strategically. You have to say, turning to these alternative sources is, I guess, an option, but the first option should be claiming our own institutions, those who depict themselves as conservatives and have raised a boatload of money, billions of dollars since say the 80s, have been put into these organizations predominantly by American patriots who believe, hey, this isn't my area of expertise. I don't have the time to focus on it, but I do recognize it's important. And they were donors because they wanted to avoid precisely these sort of outcomes. And they trusted these institutions to do these things. And those institutions in turn paid themselves very well and sort of, lived the DC cocktail circuit life. But when the rubber hit the road, put up defeat after defeat after defeat. And we have not held them accountable for that. In fact, we continue to look at them as a solution when, in my judgment, their ineffectiveness and even their ambivalence in a lot of cases has been at the core of our losses.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I absolutely agree with you 100%. You spoke earlier about the media and support, and yeah, we are at a huge disadvantage when it comes to that. So all the more reason for everyone to get involved. There is a silent majority, and it is the conservatives, and
Not
we
so
need to.
silent anymore, but yeah,
No, we need to
good.
stop. Yeah, we need to stop being the silent majority. Absolutely.
Well, and my point here, just intellectually processing, is you don't start by on your own going out and just cursing the other side for their victories. You look at your own side, because we've had a lot of resources. I mean, it's true in 2016, Trump was outspent, et cetera. I'm not just talking about elections. I'm talking about the battle for the culture, the battle for the heart and soul. And at some point, the globalist left, after they put up so many victories, very brazenly said, let's go at the heart of Americana. It's no accident that places like Disney and Budweiser, these are things 10, 15, 20 years ago we would have put up as examples proudly of Americana, right? They have no constraint any longer because they realized that they kept drilling and drilling, thinking they would hit metal at some point. Some point, the outrageousness of these things would formulate resistance, and it just never did and never does. And there's no limit now to really the extent of opportunity that they see in front of us. And look at the way they function, okay? To throw some praise their way. They don't just collaborate within public policy and politics. They collaborate across industry sectors, across functional areas. They put together hugely elaborate, complex plans. And they know how to bring our side down and how to discourage it. And they know how to target individuals. You don't target the whole movement, you target individuals. And on our side, that's really unfortunate because our individuals get targeted and nobody defends them. And they know that. You target the whole movement, well, then, nothing's going to happen. They isolate individuals and bring them down that way. And they monitor everything. It's, for somebody like me, challenging. I mean, you got to always be enormously careful and aware that our side might not be listening, but they are. And the first misstep, or the first misstatement, they will attempt to project as being reflective of the whole person and to attack then in turn the credibility. They have whole organizations well-funded, dedicated to this. So you say, well, what do we do now? Okay, we're sitting here like heading into June of 23 with all these losses behind us. I think we need like an audit of these losses. What institutions had what resources? What did they in turn do? What did their leaders do? Why did we fail? I can give you a pretty good idea. We didn't show up. It wasn't like we showed up and lost. And turn that and formulate a plan. Like if we were just starting all of this today, how would we do it? We would make sure that we had every conceivable functional area, every policy area, every political area fully covered with people who were talented and designed in those areas and loyal, right? Not just anybody off the street because somebody recommended them. We would bring our A game. It was, of all the many, many great things that Trump did in those 4 years, let's be honest. I mean, it would have been even better if he hadn't been surrounded by so much disloyalty and some incompetence. Hiring, staffing, not just in the federal government, but in every institution, every component of this field is really important. We got a lot of really talented people that are sitting on the sidelines, and we got a lot of untalented people driving the bus. Again, that's leadership crisis, because you have to look at how we're allocating our resources, how we're developing our personnel. We've lost a whole generation here, I think starting in the 90s, individuals, Generation Z, that, let's face it, I mean, they're like almost brainwashed. They're zombies. I mean, when it comes to these things, they're filled with all this rage. I don't even think they can really articulate what they're angry at. And they certainly don't understand conservatives. But you know why they don't understand conservatives? Because they don't know any. No one's met them. Nobody's taken an opportunity to present to them. Nobody's tried to develop and cultivate favor with them. And so a whole generation of individuals who've got decades upon decades of vibrant life ahead of them are going to do so with largely completely antithetical principles to those of our founders, who they hold in disdain because they've been told.
Is it the Trying Do 8?
Absolutely. If we don't get the people that we trust and the America First people, in office now, we've already waited way too long, but if we don't get them in office before we get President Trump back in there, he's going to have a really hard time, just like he did in his first term. And another thing you spoke on, the one thing Democrats really have on us right now is they are organized and we are completely and utterly disorganized. And,
right. I guess what I'm saying is you yourselves, all of us firstly, reach out to me. If you're out there, you're listening to this live or on replay, reach out to me. I do really everything I can do, like 110%, and it's nowhere near enough. All right. So, but what I am good at is in offering some strategic guidance and in helping formulate and bring people together, which is that's really ultimately what politics is about. I mean, but you need an ability and a willingness and almost an enjoyment that you derive in, addressing socially and in professional ways individuals you may not even know that well, and people that may have differing perspectives or views. We seem to attract individuals with the exact opposite attributes. I mean, these people who, given the option, would just not like to sit behind their closed door offices and pretend that they have some level of relevance and significance in the country. But no one of these past few decades has gotten much in the way of accomplishment that they can cite. You wrote a book, great. You wrote a book probably about our failures. That's not a contribution, and yet these are the people that we hold up. And some of them think it just way too high in themselves, There needs to be I don't want to say a confrontation, but there needs to be a moment where the masses of American patriots that are in the tens of millions get this message that I'm communicating, which is that the first step is not defeating the other side. The first step is gaining control over our own approaches and our own leadership and our own personnel, and then holding them accountable, right? We don't just give them a permanent, ticket to ride. They have got to be continually scrutinized. And here, let's see what happens. Just say, starting with this speaker, but I think were these the promises he made? And by the way, even the Freedom Caucus proposal on the budget was very restrained and modest. I think the instinct should have been no movement on the debt limit until we had this border addressed. Go secure the border and then come back and we'll talk about things. But we gained this political leverage this time, and we've gained it many times. And there's a lot of enthusiasm when it happens. And ultimately, it doesn't manifest or transfer into the daily lives of the American people, which is what we need to be thinking about. If you're not in this because you care about the lives of your fellow Americans, if you're in this because you know, hey, my career might look a little bit better. You know, I think about this DeSantis. Let me just give you one. I'll give you one example. You know, and I'm sure there's. Look, Governor DeSantis in Florida, he's a good governor, and he's doing some positive things, and the state's improving on his watch, and yet, you know, as you know, I'm 110% in for Trump. I think for a whole bunch of reasons, he's what we need right now, and DeSantis isn't quite ready. But look, you know, as you ponder this, part of it is an issue of political culture. To have that meeting with donors a week ago, and then, you know, number one, the recorded meeting leaks. I mean, how is that that's an operational alarm going off right there, that you can't even keep a meeting confidential. And then number two, that you sit there and have a serious discussion about liberalizing your position on the taking of preborn life in exchange for votes. I would like you, it's almost like you need to translate that and say preborn life, more preborn life needs to die because I have political aspirations, or, you know, or because it'll help me personally. Once you're thinking that way, in even a little bit of a context, and this was a pretty glaring example of it, you're part of the problem. You're part of the problem, because we will prevail and win when the American people know that we have their back, and then we go to work collectively every day, holding ourselves accountable, being realistic about what we've really accomplished, not embellishing it, and then coming back to them and explaining in truthful, open, honest terms about what we've been able to do and what we haven't been able to do and why. That's what they want. And that's a government of and by the people, right? That, which we don't have right now. And it's a structural dysfunction of particularly Congress, but also this administrative state. I mean, to have lost these critically important governmental institutions, including the highest levels of law enforcement, who place political objectives, and usually as it relates to their own individual careers, above the administration of justice and the adherence to the constitutions and the blood that's been spilled by every patriot since Concord to this present day, is the ultimate betrayal. And we can have no patience for it. We need to reclaim our side first. And then once we reclaim our side, we still have work to do. But it starts with that, not with going after a movement that we don't control, we don't have access to, and that is very well, as you correctly said, is very well put together. The only way we can do it is we go back to our drawing board, we put together our strategy, we do it in a collaborative way so everybody feels a part of it, right? We're not looking to exclude anybody. And then we hold individuals to account, we unify around this agenda, and then we move forward. You know, and there's been examples of this. You know, look at the contract with America that Gingrich put together in the 90s. You know, think in those terms where we're asking the American people, and I'm asking the American people, join me and us as we set about fixing this. You're not going to be on the sidelines. We're going to involve you in this. All right. I mean, we're going to assess what your skill sets and abilities are and make sure you're deployed correctly. But we need you in it. We need you in this battle. We don't need you as a sideline observer or critic. We don't need you yelling at your TV screen. Nothing's going to get resolved that way. it's going to get resolved because the American people come together, and the Tea Party movement did it in a certain way. But, you know, when I look back imperfectly, I mean, many things that, you know, there's limitations on what any one individual can do. But if we approach this now with the magnitude of numbers that we've been able to develop since the Tea Party movement, continuing into the MAGA movement, and there's a clear bridge there, and we say, look, we are the leadership of this country. Because really, ultimately, the people have always been the leaders. The patriots that have spilled their blood, that have gone to work and supported, paid their taxes, and those are the people that built this country. They weren't elitists sitting around in Washington, though at one point, I would say up through World War II, we had individuals in those jobs who at least patriotism burned in their veins. But the human condition and the temptations being what they are, we've gotten to a point where we have a leadership structure that in the back of their mind says, what's in it for me, not what's in it for the country. And we stupidly, foolishly allow these people to be rewarded with what's in it for me when they actually do succeed on an individual level, perhaps, but on a collective national level, we fall even deeper. That's a flawed approach. And I'm shocked, honestly, that it hasn't been more abundantly clear to those who've been looking on that it's not like we're without our own side. We've got it. And these are, you know, well-funded institutions, and it's not just government. Okay, it's the, you know, it's the broader culture of these institutions and think tanks and activist organizations and political action committees and all of this infrastructure that's been built. And in the eyes of many, it's been compromised, maybe even infiltrated, and certainly subjected to donor influence that doesn't share a passion for this that needs to be brought if we're to have any chance of success. And honestly, this is, you know, when you think about, if you've studied, say, Lenin, the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution, you look at, you know, what was one of communism's basic tenets. They said, what we're doing is going to prove unpopular, and we're going to have opponents. So we get two options. We can either let these opponents manifest generically. They're going to be hugely filled with passion, and maybe they'll end up succeeding in deposing us, or we can create the opposition. And when we create the opposition, we can compromise the opposition, control the opposition, replace the opposition. Yeah, don't think that hasn't occurred either or isn't occurring. You know, so just because some individual identify or organization identifies themselves as being aligned with us ideologically, you need to look deeper. You need to say, what were they part of the problem or part of the solution when it came to all of these defeats? And who was responsible for what? Because best as I can tell, there's no major org chart that you would see even in a 150-person small business about who was responsible for major things, major things that we may not even get back at this point because we didn't approach it correctly in the first place. And the only option now is to approach it in the right way. And that's going to take some real fundamental overhauling and restructuring of a movement. And it's going to take people with the guts to say, we appreciate what you've done. It really hasn't worked, and we got to move in a different direction. And the leverage we have is there's basically two areas. There's three areas of leverage, I guess. Number one is we've got the people. Number two, I believe with the people, we probably have a large share of the funding. And then third is we've got this issue of public accountability. and we're dealing with people who just can't, they're dealing with their individual careers. The last thing they want is, any degree of criticism. But those who are not going to be part of the solution at this point can't be consuming the resources or putting up the pretense or the misperception, really, the head fake that they are going to work every day fighting these battles when they're not. They're just simply not. And then when we lose, no one seems to hold them to account.
Yeah, I absolutely 100% agree. And, I'll say it again, and I'll get to the hands in a minute. I promise. Just please be patient. But I said it earlier, for all the voters out there, the voters are the people in the stands and the bleachers watching the ball game. If you want to change the game, if you want to win the game, you have to be a player. You have to get in there and grab some of these precinct chairs, grab some of these GOP chairs. But you have to get in there, grab these chairs, and become a player and play the game and win it. Absolutely. But
look, the precinct project is, if we're going to take back the Republican Party, the easiest, quickest, most effective means for doing it is through the precinct project. So if just to explain that, so I think you have 500,000, that's a huge number, I believe it's that high, of precinct chairs around this country. And this early on in the Tea Party movement, this opportunity was presented with me and I really embraced it. It didn't really catch fire because we were so focused on the challenges of the moment. But the idea of this 500,000, there's like 250,000 openings. So if you and I were running the Republican National Committee, I don't think it would take more than 5 minutes for us to say, hey, let's promote these openings and try to fill them, right? We don't want them vacant. But, if you're sitting there and you say, look, the people that are going to fill these positions actually have ideas on what the party ought to be doing and believe the party ought to be winning. They don't believe in the party as, kind of the consulting firm that it's turned into. That's what it is. The big metric is, did everybody get paid? Did they get paid more in the last cycle? Okay, we lost all these elections. That's fine. We'll just go on. And they go on and lose another cycle. And then they make even more money. That's really, in essence, what we've allowed this party of, and this is a party of ours. I've been involved since the age of 18. I've never not voted for a Republican. But the mechanics and the operations of this party need to be taken over by the people who embrace both the ideas of the party, the platform, which is pretty good, and the accountability of actually winning, right? You stole an election and we lost. The fact that we would afford another term to that person, and you lost the Senate, and you lost in 18 off-year elections, and then you delivered a much slimmer victory in 22 than we should have had given the state of things, because you misallocated deliberately resources that were that were given to you to put in good, effective MAGA candidates. How do we give that person another term? We give him another term because those who opposed giving her another term weren't in the room. The people that were in the room was this consulting class. And they look at it and say, I got paid last time and she'll pay me next time. And they couldn't even defend really her position. And she's the easiest target for me to point out, but it runs very deep. And really, when you look at individuals that are part of the solution right now, it's a very small list. But let's take what we got and build it. And that means all of us coming together, follow me, reach out to me, and, let's get this strategy and structure assembled. Otherwise, like you said, we're individuals that are sitting on the sidelines watching these defeats, and it's going to get worse. I don't see anything in this debt limit deal that offers anything but continued problems for the economy down the road. Nothing but challenges for us on a national security basis. This open border is going to manifest in really negative things, from fentanyl overdoses to to criminal cartel rings in this country, to vast amounts of all sorts of criminal level activity, and it's going to prove a humanitarian crisis as well. And it's not going to just affect border states, because they're moving people all over this country, and they're doing it without congressional authorization or congressional approval, just like they're waging a multi-$100 billion war for the Donbass, which most people couldn't even find on a map without congressional authorization. We need to demand that these things are resolved, because we've reached the point where the other side doesn't even expect us to show up any longer, and we don't.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They're banking on us doing absolutely nothing, and that's something that the conservatives have to get on board. They have to get in this grassroots movement. They absolutely have to get involved. And if it's okay with you, Michael, is it okay to go to a few hands while we have
Yeah,
you?
sure.
Okay, so a few rules real quick. Let's please be very respectful. The speakers that we have, they're giving us their time, so let's be respectful of them. Please do not interrupt or talk over people. If you do, you will lose your speakership, so keep that in mind, and just please be respectful. So also, we do have a group, and our group always gets first choice and first chance to speak, so we'll go to them first, and then we'll go to the audience. And first up, we will have the Brain, then Happy, then Civic, then MAGA. So go ahead, Brain. Thank you, Michael.
First, I'd like to say thank you so much, Michael. You touched on so many key issues, concerns. Wow. Every one of them that I'm so very aware of myself. So I'll try and make it short and brief, because I definitely want to hear from everybody out here that's taken the time to join us in this space, because every one of you are amazing. Every one of you have something to offer, bring something to the table. We are better together. I am a better me. We are a better us with each other. So on that note, Michael, you definitely touched on a key
Hey,
topic.
Brain.
Excuse me?
Brain, if you can, check your mic, please, because we're getting a lot of really bad feedback, and it's really hard to understand you right now. Are you on a Bluetooth, or are you on your phone?
It could be. Mine occasionally clashes when somebody else has a microphone open. I might be clashing with Michael.
Okay. Well, I did hear you, and you're absolutely right. Did you have a question? Did you want to get to something else? It's just really hard to understand you. I'm sorry, Brain. I'm really sorry.
Well, I'll tell you what, since there is an issue, I will go ahead and concede my
Brain.
mic and go from there.
Okay. Hey, Brain, do you want to ask that question really quick, or do you want me to ask it?
Relax, Happy. I'll get to it later. Let's let everybody else go ahead and go first, and we'll go from there. I mean, really, this space is all about everybody that's here. We want to get you all involved, and you all are the reason that we are here. So let's go from there. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Hey, Michael, this is the Happy Republican. I'm just going to ask a really quick question, because I know all these people do want to ask questions. So on Twitter, there is the surveys, and I don't even know if you noticed them, but everyone is doing this survey right now of who do you want to be the nominee, Trump, DeSantis, whoever. And we are getting mostly it's Trump. It just depends on whoever is asking that question. But the problem that I am seeing is the younger generation, millennials, Gen Zers, are saying in the comments on these surveys, I will not vote if it is not Trump. So I'm a little shocked by that. I guess it's probably good that these younger voters are liking Trump and want to vote for him, but I don't think they're really noticing the GOP or the Republican Party and understanding it. They just like Trump. What
Right.
would you say to those voters?
You have to vote, okay? And, so I intend to vote for Donald Trump in the primary. And if the worst case happens and he's not the Republican nominee, I intend to vote and work very hard for whoever is the Republican nominee. Meaning you have to have your voice heard. I mean, this is the most minimalist effort that somebody can exert, is showing up, and not just in these major presidential elections, but in off-year elections and in local school board and judicial elections. Don't ignore those either. They really matter. And turnout's light there. So voting is the core of American democracy and the means in which we hold elected leaders to account and reward those who are doing a good job. And I understand the enthusiasm for Trump. And, maybe it's a little premature, so it's a little bit of emotion talking from some of these people. I'm not a big fan of the Twitter polls. I think you got a lot of presence of people who do feel enormously passionate on this. But the point is, those Twitter polls actually that you're citing are very consistent with the national ones, and that is that they show Trump fully capable of beating Biden head to head, and they show Trump considerably up over every other primary opponent with big numbers. So we need to be able to manage the messaging and the support that's given for Trump, and then we need to ensure that come Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, sounds far off, but it's not, that we've got every structure in place to make sure that all of the documented voting irregularities and outright fraud that occurred in 2020 does not occur again, because I don't see anything in place that would discourage them from attempting it again. They essentially pulled it off, and they pulled it off because we allowed it. We allowed it, and then the courts allowed it, but we didn't even bring our A game to the court efforts. So without getting in all those details, let me just say the election for 2024 is underway right now, and it starts not just with candidate selection, but with making sure that we have the structures in place in each of these individual states and locales to make sure that voter fraud and voter irregularities don't occur. Because even the documented things that we saw, for instance, changing voting processes without involving state legislatures, an outright violation of state constitutions, which occurred in several states. No one held to account. No one held to any account on this. So a lot of these are ongoing issues. They relate, the Secretary of State and each individual state is ultimately responsible for them. You got to find out what their positions are, but then you also have to be working with state legislatures to tighten this up. Because the chances are really pretty good, I believe, that there's going to be some other excuse to have a significant number of mail-in ballots, and that becomes an uncontrollable mess, and where a lion's share of the fraud actually, occurs, and where we have, mail-in ballots exceed the number of even registered voters in certain constituencies, and again, no real accountability. So we've lost the infrastructure that we used to rely on, both in the federal and state judiciaries, but even within the party. That doesn't mean that we can't organize our own, election protection processes, and there's many such efforts going on. But that's also a problem because you get a lot of people duplicating efforts, and we all need to be working together on this. So, when you see individuals who've got the right instincts about what to do, and maybe they're already doing something, it's got to be, hey, let's work together on it, not work separately. You end up with, 5 different organizations in one state and none in another. It makes no sense. We got to be able to deploy limited resources in a calculated, strategic way, and you can't do that if you're not communicating about it. And we just seem to be really bad at communicating with one another. I don't, for the life of me, understand why any individual would get into public life and have such a reluctance to want to interact with other people that are trying to accomplish the same thing. That would seem to be the starting point. I always believed that, right, from the very beginning, and I did everything I could. There's a long, long list of people that would say, yeah, Michael Johns introduced me to this person, or, that's to me what it's about, is bringing together a greater amount of cohesion and collaboration. That's leadership. It's not leadership if you're sitting there in isolation, doing your own thing and losing, and then, just kind of moving on without any apparent reflection on why you're losing.
Thank you, Michael. That's great. Great question, Happy. Very, very good question. I hear a lot of people that are saying, if one or the other doesn't win the primary, I'm either not voting or I'm going to write the name in. That's just silly, because it's both a privilege and our responsibility to vote. And I would ask you, would you rather have Joe Biden or DeSantis as president if Trump doesn't win, and vice versa? Or if DeSantis didn't win, would you rather have Trump or Biden? It's an easy question to answer, and it's just ridiculous for those that don't want to vote.
It's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah.
But some of this might be posturing right now in support of Trump, and I certainly have made some points about deficiencies in DeSantis and his background that I think are worthy of consideration now. But when it comes to, if it were such a scenario, him versus Biden, there's just no comparison. So I don't, and by the way, I just don't believe, and I guess, you get a lot of people out there in positions that are working literally, in major conservative organizations who haven't validated this. But I just simply do not believe that the base of support for Joe Biden that allowed him to sneak into the White House in January 21 is considerable. I mean, we all saw it, right? I mean, just anecdotally, he couldn't fill a high school gymnasium. And then down the street, we've got Trump with tens of thousands of people waiting, camping out for days, waiting in. I realize that's just anecdotal, but it's there in every respect. And there's no one out there is jumping up and down about Biden, not even among, your hardcore Democrats. And the only reason I think you don't see the Kennedy candidacy is very fascinating. And certainly he deserves a lot of praise for his commentary related to the pandemic, much praise. And I have a lot of respect for him. But he's not considered a viable candidate because of the way the system is structured. If another viable candidate does come in, it's only going to come in because you ultimately have donors conclude that it's totally unwinnable. And I don't think we helped ourselves with this debt limit increase. I think it gives Biden a talking point, but it's also just more importantly bad for this economy and inflationary environment to be, doing this $4 trillion deal, and then you don't even have another opportunity. This is it, by the way. We don't have another opportunity now before the general election to deal with a budget issue, and we've awoken weaponized bureaucracy that got just about everything they wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go ahead and go to Civic. Go ahead, Civic.
All right. Yeah, if somebody else wants to go ahead of me, I just need a couple of minutes, actually. Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and go to MAGA, and then we have Tom after that. Go ahead, MAGA warrior.
Hey, thanks for giving me a chance to speak. Say, Michael and I just not too very long ago talked about this and what he was talking about tonight, which I think is really, really relevant and really important. Is, everybody says they did this. When we watch the news, they did this, they did that, they did the other thing. No one ever talks about the solutions. Nobody talks about doing anything about it. And what Michael's pointing out, and I couldn't agree more, is that we are the solution. We got to quit pointing fingers and saying they're doing this. We need to get involved and make the change, be the change. We've got to organize. And another thing that I see amongst Republicans, a little bit like herding cats sometimes, is they've always got a better idea, or they want to be, they want to go it alone and go in their own direction. We need to stop that. We've got to be joiners, organizers, and fighters if we're going to pull ourselves out of this. Michael did it. He was the incubator for the Tea Party. They created a movement that created incredible change. 60 seats in the House, 7 in the Senate, I believe, as a result of what they did. We need that all over again. And if we don't produce it, I think we're in a lot of trouble, because here's the thing. A lot of people think, well, the goal is to get Donald Trump reelected, and it is, and then they're done. Then they get to go back and put their feet up and watch reruns of The Matrix or something. But it isn't going to work that way. We're not going to vote our way out of this. Trump needs us, and he needs us focused and pointed in the same direction as he is. Without all of us getting on board, this might be a bridge too far if we don't. But what's going to happen is we need to take back our politics, and we need to take it back at the local level. So the precinct strategy came up. That's about the local level and taking back our party from the bottom up, because we're never going to do it the other way. The donors control our party. The reason that Ronna McDaniel got elected when our polls showed that 80% did not want her, because those China First donors, by the way, those people put her, they went and threatened the delegates, and they lobbied them and told them that, basically, if you don't go our way, it's not going to go well for you. They wield a lot of power. And let's also understand that this election coming up is largely about China, because what happened was Trump came out and he said he was going to end dependence on China, and the very next day, one of the largest donors in the United States, Steven Schwartzman, came out and said he wouldn't support Trump. He would support any Republican other than Trump. And then a whole slew of them followed him, to include Ken Griffin, one of the biggest donors for DeSantis, and said that, my business focus is on China. We've got to get rid of this populist element that's getting in the way of corporate, of corporations being able to
it's the institutions, right?
In China.
It's also the institutions. I mean, you mentioned Schwartzman. I mean, he's a perfect example. I mean, this guy is at the Blackstone Group. If we're working in the collaborative way that I envisioned, here would be one immediate step, and that is, get your company and get your family financial resources unaffiliated with the Blackstone Group, right? I mean, when it's clear that they have taken the side of our primary foreign adversary, maybe the most formidable adversary we've ever faced, over those of working Americans, then but we can't have anything to do with them. They need to be pushed out. And you know, it is very telling to look at that Schwartzman decision, because it shows a level of what really ultimately does matter to him and to many in the governing elite who have become captured assets of China's Communist Party.
But they're getting rich in China, and they don't want that to end. You know, that's really, you know, the core of it. But what we need to do, and to do what Michael just said, you know, Giant Slayers is, I'm putting a push on. We're going to have our website up and ready to fight August 1st. And we're going to push back on some of these things, or many of these things. Somebody has to organize that effort to push back against Schwartzman and BlackRock and all these people that are working to destroy our country. And here's the scariest part of what they're doing. They're creating a system or a way of going about it that takes the political process out entirely. Because, as Ken Griffin pointed out, they don't want this populist element out there pushing back against them, because it's stopping them from doing business in China. They want people who will let them continue to grow and get richer, and they don't care about us. For every day they do business in China, we get poorer here in the United States. And it's terrible. So giantslayers.net, you go to giantslayers.net. At the bottom of the page is a sign up, and put your email address on there, and we'll keep you informed as to our progress and the launch coming up, and policy, or, you know, programs and strategies that we'll put together. But I want to give these guys here, the reason I came to this is these guys are putting together, you know, a organization to push back to. And I'm going to join. I'm going to become part of their organization, because, as Michael pointed out, we need to collaborate amongst ourselves. We need to get together. There are things that United We Stand can do to help Giant Slayers, and there are things that Giant Slayers can do to help United We Stand. We need to start operating like that instead of being lone wolves. Everybody's out there doing their own thing, you know, and they don't want to. They don't want to join and collaborate.
Those who are operating as lone wolves need to part ways. They're going to need to part ways. I mean, we can't go forward with that approach. I mean, we sort of tolerated it for, I think, almost 20 years, and we saw how devastatingly flawed and failed it was. And think about it in just common sense terms. I mean, I've worded it this way to someone else, with, you know, when someone says, well, gee, thank you so much for like spending so much time talking to me, or, you know, or reaching out or whatever. And I said, look, you know, yeah, obviously I want to do that to be helpful to you, but there's always someone out there who knows a little bit more than you do about something, and or knows something that you would benefit from knowing. So you have to function that way, and you have to maintain those relationships, and you have to treasure those relationships and never burn those people, right? So even, you know, M. Stanton Evans, the great columnist who ran National Journalism Center before his life, what told me all the way back in college, in a conversation when I talked about some of the Reagan administration personnel, you know, kind of moving away from the Reagan agenda and how they were in our way. He says, put his arm around me and said, you know, that's the thing about our people, Michael. Once they get to a position where they can be helpful to us, they cease being our people. And I've seen this over and over again, where, you know, individuals on the way up, very open and communicative, and, you know, looking for the support, but you can't ever forget, once you're in it, those people, You know what I mean? You need it. There's an element of, I guess it's an ethical sense of loyalty that is lacking in our leaders, but needs to exist. That you're in this for your country and the people, and that means interacting with the people of your country routinely and extensively. You know, formulating relationships and organizational structures, and being transparent and honest, and sort of taking every negative quality that people associate with political life and making sure you don't emulate any of those, right? Politicians lie, never lie, speak the truth. Politicians lack guts, show guts. Politicians are all in it for themselves. Prove over and over again that you're not in it for yourself, that you're in it for the country. And I'm going to tell you, that is what will that's what will turn the country around. That's what will save this movement. And the ultimate irony, I believe people will reward you for it. So even if you're out there saying, hey, look, this is just about me and my career, I don't care about the ramifications of the country or the people see through that so quickly. And how many times have we seen it right now? You just rattle the names off of individuals who the country was enthusiastically behind, and they quickly lost confidence. We'll see what happens to Kevin McCarthy now. I mean, I think he made some commitments and promises to secure the speakership that he certainly did not deliver in these Biden negotiations. Very difficult to fathom that we just kind of allow this to go on. We had the mechanisms in place to remove the speaker, if you can recall the dynamics of that. And I think the mighty 20 are going to step up and show their influence.
Hey, let me make one last point here, Michael. I couldn't agree with everything you say more, really. We need to be that guy who gets out there and, Teddy Roosevelt's the man in the arena. I love that thing. You need the guy whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, but keeps going. That's who we need to be. And we need to fight. What Giant Slayers is going to be focused on is taking back local politics. Because think about this for a minute. The left offers a tyrannical state of equality. Really, that's what they're saying, a tyrannical state of equality. And we offer freedom. How can you possibly lose that argument? I'll tell you how you lose it. When I got involved and started doing research at the local level, there's nobody down there but them. They control local politics. If you go on Twitter, they've got like 12 different platforms. Go to Midas Touch and take a look at them. They've got these multi-million-dollar websites that organize people to fight back and lobby Congress. We need all of that, and we need to work together. So Giant Slayers is joining Bannon and his posse over there, and we're going to start hitting the phones and hitting those politicians and letting them know that we're not going to take it anymore. Wait, what's that?
That's a great American in Steve Bannon. I mean, and I believe, two things about, too many to cite two attributes for brevity purposes that I see in him. Number one is a nearly unmatched magnitude of intelligence as it relates both to the history and current predicament of this country and the magnitude of this moment. But also, I believe in him and in his show structure as well, you see that he too understands that it takes, more than an individual. And of course, no one's perfect and he's not perfect, but those are two very rare attributes right now. But you cited Roosevelt. I used to have a big sign on my wall all the way back to college because it inspired me. Far better it is to dare mighty things, to win glorious triumphs, even though checkered by failure, than to rank with those poor spirits who neither enjoy much nor suffer much, because they live in the gray twilight that knows neither victory nor defeat. That was Theodore Roosevelt, and it is indeed one of the most inspiring quotes and certainly applicable today.
I'll tell you what, every time I hear it, I get super motivated. So I like it. Yeah, no, we've got it. We've got to fight back. We're going to join the posse, and then we're going to create sort of a cyber version of civil disobedience. You know, those politicians that aren't working for us, we're going to get on their threads on Twitter and we're going to comment. But you know what's going to happen? Hundreds of people will show up and get on their threads. We're not going to let them speak and push this propaganda any longer without us getting involved and setting the record straight. And the last thing that I have to say is that really we need to take our country back at the local level, because right now the system is rigged against us. And it's only, as Michael points out, it's only rigged against us because we don't do anything. There's nobody down there. There's nobody down there fighting back. I can't say nobody, but few are down there fighting back. Everybody talks about taking it local, but nobody does anything about it. So look for Giant Slayers coming online August 1st. We're going to be ready to fight. We're not going to stand and take this anymore. We've got to take our country back. We got to be the leaders that are out there in front, like Teddy said, you know, with blood and dust on our face, and happy to do it, because our country is nearly gone. You know, that's another thing that Giant Slayers does. I've got another organization, Giant Slayers University, and its purpose is to educate about the threats of globalism that are attacking us. You know, this doesn't get talked about anywhere close to enough. This is very serious, and we're on the edge of it. We're on the edge of losing our country. If Biden gets elected, it's gone. Our sovereignty is gone.
Well,
the UN will be running our country soon.
Let's not, you know, I think the key is, you know, firstly, we don't talk about our tactics openly. Is, you know, I think like the tactics and the strategies, ones that exist and ones that will exist, you know, need to be developed as they are on the other side confidentially. No need to, you know, give them any forewarning of that. But, you know, and the other thing is just to recall and remember that as much as we had just extraordinary generation after generation in this country, and I wonder sometimes if we have it any longer, we have overcome some extraordinary odds. That is the great story of the United States of America. That's what makes it so deserving of its defense right now. And as pessimistic as things may look, you can't get into, there's an instinct, and there's a sizable number of people out there who don't want to hear the details of the magnitude of our current state and the threats that we confront. And the negative news becomes both anxiety and depression, you know, tools, you know, to them, and they close it out. But that's why the collaboration is so important, because if you are surrounded by this great body of people who look at it the way you look at it, you're not going to feel that way as much. You know, you're going to feel that way when you feel in isolation. You know, when you're looking on and reaching these negative conclusions about the future of the country, very easily reached right now, and not necessarily inaccurate either. But if you do it and you're part of something bigger that is serious about turning it around, how many times in this country's history have we turned it around? Now all of a sudden, I think that's a different sort of cultural construct, and the one that we need to be fostering. And not just, you know, I'm tired of talking about fostering. We need to be demanding it at this point.
Absolutely, Michael. And MAGA, great stuff. Thank you. If you want, go ahead and throw your information up in the nest, your website. Also, to both you, Michael, and MAGA, if one of you have Steve Bannon's ear, I would like for, well, I was going to introduce Chris Rose to you, but I believe he dropped out. But he's a West Virginia patriot, and he's a candidate. And we had him on last week, and he's a 100% America First hardcore representative, and we really need to get him some more coverage. So, you know, they've been trying to contact him. I don't think that they've had much luck. But if you research or if you go and look them up, or if you just talk to them,
talk to me offline about that. I'll take
yeah,
care of it.
absolutely, yeah, great. Okay, we'll get back to the hands. Civic, I do see, but we do have a member that has his hands up. I know he probably won't be long, so we'll come back to you. So go ahead, LD50.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I do have a question for Michael, but I'm going to hold that till later and let some other people. But Michael, I want to thank you so much for coming onto our space. Your direction, your plan is spot on, something we all need to do. I just want to go a little deeper on what Casey just said. Who we just had in here, and he was in here for most of the space, was Chris Rose, and he's running for Senate in West Virginia. And he needs all of our support. So I'm going to ask everybody who's still in here to follow Chris Rose, WV. And he's looking for help from us since we're all speaking about collaboration. We have a guy right in this room we can collaborate for right now, and that is he's looking to get on Steve Bannon's War Room to help his name get national. He's looking for an endorsement from President Trump. So please, all of us could get together, start tweeting for Chris Rose. He's up against a rhino. He's up against a big battle in West Virginia. He's great for West Virginia. He's great for this country. So please, if we could all get together. I see Scott Pressler's back in the house. It's great to see you, Scott. Michael, I'm going to ask you a question in a little while, but I'm going to go ahead and get back in line and let these other folks ask a question first. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, LD. Okay, Civic. Thank you for being patient, Civic. Go ahead.
Hey, no problem. It's nice to just be in these spaces with a bunch of people, Americans. I'm an American, by the way, who, they're trying to communicate the political views that they have and trying to cope with and deal with the political situation that we all have all of a sudden. For many of us, it's all of a sudden, rather. And that comes to my point where there are things I agree with in what you're saying, and there are things I disagree with in what you're saying. So I'd like to be able to just ask you a quick question. You can say like yes or no. And then I think we'll all benefit and learn from an experiment with you. So my first question is like, can you clarify what you said about Gen Z? Because you targeted that group of people, even when you had Gen Z people lined up to speak. And you said
I don't think they would deny. I don't think they would deny that they. Yeah, I don't think they would deny that they have peers ideologically who have bought into this woke agenda in enthusiastic ways. So clearly we have very strong movements and pushback on it, but also true. There's probably been no generation in the country's history that has been more embracing of this, some of these extreme woke agenda items than that generation. I think that's indisputable, and I don't think they would dispute it. They are. I just asked you if they are the most documentably. They are the most left-wing generation in the history of the country.
Okay, just hold up. You do a really good job of speaking and expressing your views. I'm trying to ask you a quick question.
There's allies.
The next quick question is just, do you know the spread, the percentages in that specific subcontext of voters? Gen Z, do you know how they voted in 2020? It was like these polls from Pew Research say that 33% identify as Democrats and 29% identify as Republicans. And then there is a silent majority there, you can imagine. So if you want to target a specific group and be more productive than making these people feel excluded, and especially
they don't feel that's hold on right there though. That's not the point. The point is to say that the work, and that was the context in which I brought it out, is that the work is cut out for that generation.
Yeah, I know, right? Because that's how these Americans face what they face now in this political situation, and it kind of landed on them.
And there's a lot of
So it gets to
encouraging
my
signs.
second point,
There's
though,
a lot
Michael.
of encouraging signs, So, and I don't think it is I think it's inspiring, not uninspiring, for them to be aware, because they probably do not want the ongoing legacy of being associated with a generation.
Exactly. Some people said, why would they vote for Republicans if it wasn't Trump? Well, you guys laid out a lot of reasons why, and there are a lot of justified reasons why somebody wouldn't want to vote.
Well, not for me. You didn't hear anything negative about it.
Let me get on to something else, Michael, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Good. So that percentage spread in Pew Research shows like 4%. Do you know the percentage spread among the African American voter bloc? It's 90% Democrat and 10% Republican.
But on registration basis, not on voting basis.
They would have spoken in this space too, but they left. And that is a much wider margin, wouldn't you say?
I think I see lots of progress. I see a lot of, and particularly with Trump, and I think the policies that he put in place that drove African American unemployment to the lowest point in history. Some encouraging signs of rethinking this, and
Absolutely.
Part of it is the fact that we need to make it clear. I mean, the Republican Party was founded, in its opposition to slavery.
Absolutely. I think everybody knows that. Everybody knows that.
I don't know if they do
here in this space.
I'm going to be clear.
And I love sharing that story. Yeah. And I love these stories. It's truth, and everybody loves the truth. I love sharing the truth.
KKK was founded by Democrats.
Hold on, Michael, please.
You know what, you guys? Civic, let's just let Michael answer, and then you can ask the questions, but let's just give him, a little bit of time, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So my point is just that African American outreach is so important. It's like one of the most important things you can do, but nobody does it. And then rather hating on Gen Z and making them feel excluded is the opposite. If you're thinking about it from an image perspective, and even just the people in this space, I saw a lot of Gen Zers, if there are any still, get their point of view. Black people too. And everybody just needs to, be organized, like we're saying. The whole movement and vision is good, but it's like, dude, the percentage spread in Gen Z is 4%, according to Pew Research. And if you look at the African American voting bloc, which is larger, it's 90% Democrats. And that seems like a crisis in among itself of misinformation among those communities who really end up voting for things that hurt them. That's my point.
Thank you, Civic.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Happy.
I was just going to say thank you, Civic. And then if Michael, do you want to respond at all? Please go ahead. If not, we can go to the next question.
Because the thing that it comes down to is you end up becoming.
Hey, Civic, can we let Michael respond?
Yeah. If I could just pitch the question now. It's just with that information. The thing is, what happens, Michael, and this is the question. At that point, there's a chance that you are becoming part of the problem, respectfully, and just as you're addressing. And I hope you can see where I'm coming from, because this isn't anything personal, but I'm just doing this little thing, so hopefully everybody can benefit from. And nobody wanted to challenge you on what you said. It's like, what's going on here? But yeah, that's my question. Do you see that?
Okay, thank you, Seth. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the next question, because we're kind of getting repetitive, and we got some people that have been really, really patient. We do appreciate you, Civic, but let's move on. Go ahead and LD50. Did we get Tom in our group?
Please ask let Tom go first, Casey. He's been waiting an awful long time.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was asking. I was going to go ahead and let him go, but everyone, Chris Rose is back in here. If you just look down on the speakers, he's up on the stage. So MAGA, if you're still in here, and Michael, that's the Chris Rose that we were discussing in West Virginia. So please hook up with him, especially if you have Bannon's ear. Like I said, he's a great America First candidate. So with that, let's go ahead and go to Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for having me, and it's really great to see Michael Johns here. Michael, I know I reached out to you about a year ago and just introduced myself the first time I ran for office. And, I really appreciate all the hard work the Tea Party's done over the years and what y'all did. When y'all could do it, it was important here in Texas with Ted Cruz, of course. And I feel like Michael is, the grassroots machine central to a certain degree based on the history and the hard work that this man's done. He's kind of like Karl Rove 2.0 to a certain extent, and we're working on, figuring out how we can create Karl Rove 3.0 and just create a new network of grassroots people that actually care about conservative principles and promoting the party, getting people registered. And really, I mean, it's the same things that Scott Pressler's working on. I'm working on them here in Texas, but I know it's important to work with organizations for them to work with each other, Michael. But I was wondering, maybe my question to you is: would you be interested in putting in some kind of directory or some kind of central database for everything nationwide to help kind of organize all these different grassroots organizations, so when people want to know, maybe where they can get involved, maybe they can go through your website and it can have links to all these various organizations that are registering people and planning get out the vote drives, because our local parties here, they don't really want to commit to that. They're too busy planning their conventions, flying people to Boston for training programs and setting up civic centers, apparently, among other things. That's how our money's being spent at the national level for the RNC and at the state level here in Texas, just for conventions and whatnot and other, expenses they feel are extremely important. But this is going to be a grassroots effort. So what can we do to get better organized, I guess, is what I'm saying here, because I know, Rove did it with, I guess, DOS or Windows 95 or, a spreadsheet, or maybe he did it by hand. I'm not sure. That if they were able to do it in the 80s and the 90s, get organized and take the Reagan wave and roll with it and really push conservatism through America, which I think is really what happened there. In Texas, of course, we were able to flip Texas from blue to red. That was done with hundreds and if not thousands of people in Texas. And that's what I feel like we need, a revival of this, but we need to own it ourselves and not let the establishment run it. And so how do we do that? And is there a way that you can help us at least get organized, perhaps? Or is there anything you can help through the Tea Party? I visit Tea Party chapters here in Harris County in Texas myself. I'm friends with lots of the people here. And so once again, thank you for everything that you do, and for being there, and for answering me when I reached out to you as a busy candidate. I've reached out to so many people, and this man replied back to me immediately almost, and was there if I needed him. And I can't just thank you enough, Michael, for that. So once again, thank you for joining us tonight. And that's basically my question. Thank you, sir.
Okay, did we lose Michael, or
I
is it
think you may
just
have to
me?
come off mute. You may have to, Michael. I don't know if you know you get your microphone muted. You got to press the bottom left little button there, and you'll come off microphone. There you go.
Yeah, I think a few things that came up there that are, one that I've already thought of that I think are great ideas. One is, yes, a book of resources or a website of resources that are available to activists would be a very valuable contribution. These are tactics. I don't usually like to talk about the tactics openly. I like to kind of do that more confidentially. But the other thing I believe that we need at this point, to the broader point of accountability, is we have all these organizations that assess, say, members of Congress, and they issue rankings based on their voting records. And frankly, they're influenced by donors, which means the votes they assess are sometimes controversial, and members of Congress aren't so crazy about the way it's done. But we have all these institutions and organizations that contend that they're doing extraordinary things while they're simultaneously, as we all know and agree, we are losing this country and losing these battles. I think some form of accountability projects among conservatives is important, which is to say that we're going to look at metrics, and there's probably a broad range of them you can look at, including allocation of resources, including win-loss record, including adherence to their stated mission, and put that out, because that's important to know for the purposes of leadership accountability. It's also useful for donors, I believe, who just get bombarded with these solicitations that are well written by professionals and they sound great, and money pours into some of these groups, and then they don't really do anything, and they're not there on the vital battles of the 21st century. So that's in the back of my mind as a project. But I don't want it to be subjective, and I don't want it to be politicized. It would have to be a very methodical, approach where where those that are subjected to these reviews understand the basis under which those assessments are made. But we need to understand that a lot better, because I think we're getting played, frankly, by a lot of these groups that aren't doing a whole lot, paying their people a lot, pretending they're in the battle, pretending they've got some national importance and significance, and ultimately really, in the best case, are non-factors, and in the worst case, have sometimes been actually harmful to our causes and our larger battle for the nation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. We'll go ahead and go to the Brain, and then LD50. If you wanted to come back after him, go for it. Go ahead, Brain.
Okay, I bumped out, came back in. I'm hoping we don't have the microphone issues this time. Am I coming through okay?
Yeah, you're coming through fine. There's a little something going on, but it's not bad. It's not like ear piercing.
Okay, I apologize. I'm trying. What I wanted to say earlier was thank you so much, Michael, because you did touch on so many key issues that we face as far as the party and getting organized. To everybody that's in here with us, first of all, I want to say thank you so much. We are honored and humbled to have each and every one of you in here with us. Our mission is to try to bring together people on the grassroots level, the local level. Our website, we actually have a website, and we're using it as kind of a centralized resource for any resource out there. So any organization, I mean, you're right, Michael, we definitely need to screen those, but we would definitely like to work with other organizations. We will list them in our website, because every resource available, we need to have a centralized location. We all need to come together. I would also like to say that if I may take a little reign here, Casey and Crazy and LD, Happy, maybe reach out to any of you all out there that have your own local, say, grassroots effort going on. I do myself. I still work within the Republican Party as far as trying to take it over, the party itself, so we can get back to, America first, get rid of the good old boy network. maybe reach out to us so we can, help organize, bring everybody together, learn from each different group's successes and failures, and come together with a national type strategy. Michael, sir, I would be, and I think the rest of us in the group would be honored if you would work with us on a national platform that counters the Democrats' talking points, that sounds inclusive, that everybody can get on board with. I would
absolutely reach out to me on that. We'll talk about it.
Yes, that would be. I would definitely be honored to have your assistance with that, and we will definitely post this on our website. I would sure very much, and I think everybody else in this space would very much like to hear from each and every one of you. If you have a question for Michael, or maybe a question about our group here and our mission, please grab a microphone, because every one of you matter. We need every voice. We need every person, all hands on deck. So on that, I will return the mic. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Absolutely, and thank you, Michael, for offering that. Now we're getting kind of close to 10 o'clock, so that's Central Time. Michael, I don't know how long you want to go. We'll leave that up to you.
I think we've got it. I think we've covered hopefully the basics. This is not designed, in my mind, to be one-time event. I'm available offline for questions on our tactics, and then to return and talk further about the big picture and the policy challenges that we're confronting and the priorities of those too, because we really need to prioritize. We got a holistic assault and no shortage of really horrific, threatening things that need to be confronted, but they're not all of equal significance. And that's another thing we need to really be able to reach consensus and work on. So I think the main takeaway here, okay, is which mentioned earlier, and let's stop using the word I, and let's stop using the word they, because everything that goes on is by we. Even when we lose, when the country loses, we have lost. Even if we weren't if you weren't in the fight, you weren't in the fight. If we didn't have a plan, we didn't have a plan. But we have lost. And stop the fascination with the magnitude of those defeats, and stop thinking that the other side is somehow invincible. I mentioned and want to reiterate that if you're looking for the positives, we continue to have the vast majority of the American people behind our centrist agenda, okay, of just sensible things. They're pushing successfully nonsensible things. We have a sensible agenda, but we have lost and never developed the operational and strategic components of a political and policy strategy, which is why we've lost. So as we develop those, and we need to do it collectively, like I said, we're going to start winning, and winning is contagious. Once you start winning, people take note and they want to be a part of it. It'll blossom, and that certainly is the lesson of the Tea Party movement. People say, "What was success? How did it get so big, so significant, so influential?" It was the supply and demand concept. People were looking for something that we supplied, an avenue for engagement, and then ultimately 30-40 million Americans became not just supportive, but involved in some capacity in that movement. And that was a product of removing the barriers to entry, making it easy to get involved, and then making sure the people that were involved were properly deployed and felt good about what they'd done. And they felt good because we won. You know, when people put a lot of effort into a losing cause, they don't feel as positive, and sometimes they're not inclined to come back to it. We need to avoid that. And the way to avoid it is to avoid all of these problems in our methodology that have been embraced up to now. And I hope that's clear. I mean, look, first step at why are our leaders failing us? Why are our organizations not delivering as they promised? And what can we do and should do to hold them accountable and to get the right movement and structure in place strategically and operationally so that we can start putting up wins?
Absolutely. And we'll go ahead and take a few more questions. LD's been extremely patient, so we'll go to LD and then we'll go to Happy. And real quick, Chris, if you would just stick around for a little bit, I'd like to introduce you to the room after we get done and kind of get your name out there as much as we can. So we appreciate you being here. Thank you, Michael. So let's go ahead and go to LD.
Well, I've been so patient because Michael has done a superb job laying everything out and almost answering my questions, you know, as I was coming up with them. But the we thing, first of all, we're honored to have you here. We're honored to have all the friends we've made in these spaces. And we're honored to do a little part on helping, you know, fix our country. So we would love to have your support, Michael, helping us do something on a national level. But, you know, here's kind of a hypothetical question, but not really, because it's something we are trying to do. We got Chris Rose right next to you there. He's the one running for West Virginia Senate. We got Scott Pressler in here. Everyone knows what he does all over the country, and he does it for no money. He should be in charge of the GOP. But so we're on Twitter, and we support these folks, and we tweet for them, and we ask people to donate money, and we ask, you know, and we make phone calls, and we're in our own little corner here, though, in Twitter. It's almost like we're preaching to the choir. So we
are. But that's why we're talking about we're talking about tactical and strategic goals. Because it's like Rush Limbaugh used to say, double dittos, right? We don't need to talk about the magnitude of the threat or everything. Perspective, we all agree on those things and understand them, I think, fully, and understand where it's all headed if we don't turn it around. So it's like double dittos on that. And then what do we do? Because when I've never seen a profession function this way, where you've had defeat after defeat after defeat, and yet the common sense point I'm making tonight is that we need to look within and at our own side, and particularly those who've had the most resources, and hold them accountable, is not really being broadly discussed. It needs now to be the centerpiece of it all, because before we can prevail over this alien ideology that is insidiously infiltrating every institution in the country and may ultimately, if it hasn't already, reach a point of irreversibility, we have to put our own side together. And we're not together. We're just not. And anyone who says that we are is, you know, delusional. Literally, people, you know, I see in the DC organizations who've got, you know, the title outreach coordinator. You never hear from these people. And a lot of organizations have gone out and, you know, started and raised and spent billions of dollars saying that they would work with and cultivate grassroots support for our agenda, and you never hear from them. And no one does, you know, so it's like I'll routinely ask that question. Scott, if you are on, I hope you'll validate what I mentioned you earlier, because I said, you know, as soon as I heard about this guy, I picked up the phone and we had the worst connection, as I recall. You were in Pittsburgh, I believe. And I think the first question I asked you was, Scott, you're doing incredible work. Has anyone reached out to you from the RNC? And you said, no. And I had about 5 reasons before I heard that answer. But for me, that really solidified in my own mind how flawed the current Republican National Committee is. And so when we talk about taking back, the institutions that we do have ostensibly representing us, that certainly is a starting point. And the Precinct Project is a great one. It needs to be even better organized and better promoted. But it's thoughtful and it's strategic and it makes sense. And there's other things that we can do. But this is our party as much as it is theirs. I mean, I never really heard of Ron McDaniel before 2016. I've been at this since 1986, or earlier than that even. And we can't reach a conclusion that these aren't our institutions. These are as much or more our institutions than they are those who've just somehow been afforded the leadership of them because we've been maybe not paying attention or being foolish and take for granted that the logical things would just sort of take care of themselves, and they haven't.
Absolutely, yeah. It's ridiculous. Like I said earlier, we have a person we're giving millions of dollars to that's supposed to be a leader that's doing absolutely nothing. And then we have we have people like Scott Presler out there doing all the legwork and all the groundwork and not getting paid a dime. It's just everything's so backwards. It's so ridiculous. So
yeah, but let's just commit ourselves to fix. And I know Scott will agree with this because I've heard his comments on it before. It's yes, we got a lot of absurdities, and we can sit around and dwell on the absurdities and the ridiculousness of it all, or better yet, we can take the position that tomorrow starts today, and we are going to put together the strategic plans and the operational approaches in a collaborative, strategic, unified way, and then we're gonna keep score on how we're doing and make adjustments as necessary if we're not succeeding. That seems to have never crossed the mind of the leadership of our movement and party, apparently, where we continue to reward with continued upward mobility and leadership positions people whose track record is absolutely abysmal.
Absolutely agree. Okay, so real quick, we'll go to Happy, and then if we have time, I do have kind of a question I would like to ask you, but we'll go ahead and go to Happy. Go ahead, Happy.
Thank you. Hey, Michael, I'm just going to go back to Civic. He did leave the space. It is too bad. We did have 3 people raising their hand that I know were Gen Zers. Also, Chris is a millennial. I think Scott is a millennial. I just want you to maybe make a comment on that because you do keep mentioning we. And I do feel like they just feel like they're not wanted in the party. And is there any way or any advice you can help that?
Well,
change
there's all
that?
sorts of, I've never seen such blossoming of youth-oriented organizations. When I started out at the age of 18, there was College Republicans and Young Americans for Freedom. Those were 2 that I, was involved in leadership with, but there wasn't much more. Now you have a whole range of organizational opportunities that exist, internship, DC-based opportunities. And I think the country as a whole also has become there was a sort of sentiment, never stated, but it was sort of implied that, early in my career that younger people sort of had to wait their turn. I don't think that exists any longer. I think, the country is looking for and will open the door for principled, effective, young would-be leaders in our movement. And there's a lot now, finally, because we spent so much time neglecting this, predominantly in the 90s, I would say, in trying to see what can be done to turn it, around. But I don't think we've ever seen a generation that has been so radicalized. And the ramifications of that are not just profound in the present tense, but they're going to be felt for a long time, unless there's some, unless there's some, change of sentiment among these individuals. Not seeing a whole lot of that. There's a few examples, but, we have, some really significant challenges there. I mean, someone had raised earlier, do I know the numbers of yeah, I know the numbers of everything. This is kind of my life in a lot of ways. I think in the 15 to 24 age rank, Trump back in 16 had a unfavorable view of 72%. I think it exceeded any other demographic in the country. It was significant. All right. So if you're part of that 28%, that's great. And, that 28, that's not necessarily favorable, but, there's no doubt we have major challenges there. And that's why I think we have some resources and organizational opportunities arising, TPUSA, for instance, others. But you need to look at these opportunities. They're not just social opportunities. You have to really, when you get in there, not make the mistakes that we've made, meaning you got to really assess, is what we're doing working? Are we winning? It's not just elections either. Are we taking these institutions back? I mean, I can't go out to a college or university and give a speech on even the most mainstream themes or comments without running the risk of having the whole campus burned down before I even got there by people who don't know me and would assign viewpoints that I don't hold. We are the anti-fascist party. We are the pro-inclusion party. We're the party of African-American liberation and promotion and Hispanic liberation and promotion. We're the party of the working class of this country. They are the pawns of elitists who have a limited amount of loyalty to the United States, if any, and who have failed in a colossal way with every opportunity that they've been afforded. Our case is compelling. I'm not sure the minds are too open to hearing it, however. And then, we're not going to solve that on this call, but that's got to be, an agenda item that we take on in a significant way with a larger body of an organized movement designed to take the conservative movement into what I want to say, maybe the 4.0 range. I say, maybe, it starts with Bill Buckley founding National Review in 1955. Then that's just kind of an intellectual movement. But it leads ultimately to Reagan, and not just the 80 win, but the earlier defeat, and the Reagan 2.0. I have to say the MAGA movement and the Tea Party movement are sort of 3.0 or 3.0 and 4.0. And now we're looking into this future that I believe includes Donald Trump as a continued leader in our movement, and trying to recognize all of these defeats that we've experienced, and not just when we're out of power, but including when we're in power. Right. So, I mean, even winning these elections and, having full control as we did from 2017 to 2019 was, not sufficient to reverse this. And we would make the same mistake again if we view this exclusively as a political task, because it is my contention, and I think it's backed up with facts, that even with control of both houses of Congress and the White House, and even with good representation in federal courts, that we would encounter difficulties, because the penetration and the strategy that's been amassed against us goes much, much deeper than just the political dimension.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes, thank you, Happy. Great questions. And I would like to take one more question since we're on the subject. We have a upcoming a young Republican in our room right now with his hand up, Dylan. And go ahead, Dylan. The stage is yours.
Thank you, United, and great space. I had to leave for a little bit, but first off, I wanted to say, Michael, it's been a long time since we've talked. I would love to connect with you and talk to you about some strategies on how we can get this country back. But I would say one of the strategies is getting a MAGA candidate like Chris Rosen here elected to the U.S. Senate to go in and fight for us and actually have representation in the Congress. Because
well, no, not but one. I want to just, and by the way, I am familiar with Chris. I don't want to make it seem like I'm not. You know, and I know the whole story. The fourth generation coal miner. I know the whole thing. And I do support him, but you know, having worked in the Senate, worked in both houses, House and the Senate. Let me just tell you, I mean, it's not as advertised, it's not like what you learn in 9th, 10th grade civics. The structure of the place is very top heavy with leadership control. It's very tough to do much of anything without leadership involved. And with each passing year, individual members of Congress have become less and less consequential. Money runs the system. The leaders on both parties, the leadership, meaning, you know, the speaker, the majority leader, minority leader, are selected not based on the fact that they are the best communicators, or they've got the best leadership skills, or they've even got the best political skills, but they've got the best fundraising skills. Nancy Pelosi and the masses of money that she put together out in Silicon Valley and in the Bay Area, you know, she owes her whole career to that. There was nothing much more to her in the way of attributes. No one wanted to lose that money. And so this is a complicated problem of our own creation. And we need, and as is the partisan divide in the country, you know, which I was thinking the other day, this is a provocative question, but I couldn't answer it. And I started to say, here are like 10 reasons I could think of about how the two-party system is hurting the country. And then I started to say, okay, but what are the ways it's helping the country? And I couldn't really, quite honestly, answer that question any longer. I think I once could have told you that for voting purposes and for the advancement of an agenda, that a political party was useful. But you know, not as much anymore. I mean, the beauty, and none of this is to undermine or detract from the genius of our founding fathers, because what they did was they afforded us within the Constitution and within all of their genius writings, the opportunity to adjust the system within the constraints of liberty and within the constraints of the Constitution in sensible ways, because they knew instinctually that the circumstances of this young country in the late 18th century were going to change dramatically. They couldn't envision how. We always say they would never recognize this country if they arrived in it right now. That's true. But they knew it would change in some significant way that would impact policy and politics in ways where the system itself would need to keep pace with those changes or be reactive to those changes. So we have a genius political system, the first nation really founded exclusively on the basis of ideas, and not conquered through military conquest or revolution. And that is one of the many reasons I have such passion to defending it. And it's one that I would encourage all of you to reflect on. Hopefully you did a little bit over Memorial Day weekend. And we owe a lot to the generations before us and what they've done. They didn't do it just for themselves. And when I think of these founding fathers, the individuals who put it all on the line. I mean, when they signed that declaration, it was not just a death sentence, it was an act of treason. And you can look at how treason was treated by the kingdom at that time. You know, it wasn't just a death sentence. They'd hang you until you were nearly death, and they cut your body parts up, and they just put you all over the city of London to put it on display. The message being, don't ever challenge the governing forces of this nation again. We had individuals here who had lots of property, had considerable wealth, and the benefit of being, you know, in having some luxury of standing in their respective communities. And they said, you know what, it's not enough. We're going to risk losing not just all of that, but our very lives, because future generations will otherwise never enjoy the blessings of liberty. That was the thinking that went into it. And they did. And what, you know, you can go and look at Jefferson's declaration, and it is, and Jefferson, you know, in that first draft had, you know, the parts that they took out in Philadelphia were related to the independence being the case for the fact that the king had imported slavery into the United States that was antithetical to their ethical, religious, and general political beliefs. It was a very early attempt by Jefferson to cite that as one of the many reasons for independence. And they didn't have the national consensus on that, but it ultimately took an enormously deadly civil war to settle. But it was settled. We were not the country that invented slavery. We were the country that ended it, and we didn't invent it. It existed for 5,000 years and was imported here. And our founders were immediately pondering how to be among the first countries to extract us from that abysmal system. That's a rich story, a deep one that we ought to understand well, and we ought to articulate. I think the more we go back, and believe me, this was on my mind when we founded the Tea Party movement. It's one of the reasons we cited the iconic Tea Party movement. The more we talk about the founders and the more we educate the American people that these aren't just, you know, dead white guys, but we're incredible human beings who sacrificed in extraordinary ways and made enormous contributions, the stronger our case will be in the present tense as it relates to defending this country, because we're up against a movement that understands when they take away all the icons of the country, you're going to inherently diminish the willingness of the people of the country to do much to defend it. And so that was an incredible act of Jefferson, and very few people know about it.
Hey, Michael. I love your takes. I think they're interesting. But also, Michael, we need, like, see, the problem is, Michael, if we can fix it, we need to get the proper leadership in there, and seriously, out of all the MAGA candidates that have ran, Chris is definitely the top, like, in my opinion, because Chris has been openly talking to people. He has been on these Twitter spaces asking people what their needs are, and like, and he has the policy to solve literally all these problems, and will continue to fight even if they get rejected, because like, we don't have fighters in the Senate. We have a thing called pussies in the Senate, and they don't
Well,
do
it's
anything.
the world. It's also not, you know, it's sort of set up by design as the world's most deliberative body, having worked in it, not designed for fighting, you know, necessarily in the way that you might see in the House at times or in state legislatures. But we need principle. We have no American out there, you know, the no news here is sitting there thinking that Mitch McConnell or Chuck Schumer has got their back or is thinking about them. they long ago became captured political entities of predominantly donors, and it's got to change. And we'll see what happens now to Kevin McCarthy, because we maintained the option of removing the speaker. That was something we went through when we removed, we took Boehner out, and then we took, Paul Ryan out for the most part, because the disgust grew so great. I mean, he as much as anyone is responsible for us not having the border wall. Trump wanted it. He controlled the House, and he wasn't budging. When I talk about accountability, it includes people like that. And the fact that he had, and maybe still does have, an R behind his name shouldn't matter. I've known that guy for 30, 40 years, all the way back to when he worked with Bill Bennett. I'm not trying to be a name dropper, but I'm just telling you, these individuals are ultimately human beings. They're nothing more. And when they become captured enemies of captured entities of either big money or even of progressive ideas, we need to step in and say, hey, look, that's not what we sent you here for, and do something about it. And so 2024 in West Virginia, you can count on me being down there, being a part of it. And I like everything I've seen so far with Chris, and I will take a little closer look at his, at his race for sure.
Hey, Michael. Also, I've been an advocate for him for a few months now. I've been an advocate for him probably since around February or something like that. But here's the thing, Joe Manchin has impacted my state, and he's impacted his own state and a lot of the states around.
It's being upset. Let me just be honest. So we just be honest, because we got no time not to be. As I recall, you got Jim Justice in that race, right?
Yeah, he's terrible.
Okay, but he's a former governor of the state, or the current governor of the state. And then you got, I think, Alex Mooney, who represents, I think, the 2nd district in West Virginia, also in the race. Those are big names who are bringing big money. And we like everything about Chris, a man of the people and a man of West Virginia. Meaning there's a roadmap on how to run a race like that. It's a difficult and uphill one. And he's probably learned that by now, but he's going to need an extraordinary amount of help, because trust me, big money is going to pour in, not just in the general, but in that primary, to support a guy like Justice or Mooney, who they view as more accommodating.
Mitch McConnell's guy. I mean, it's and also Club for Growth too. Club for Growth is flooding this race with money to Mooney and Justice. Justice, if you weren't aware, I mean, Chris knows more than I do about Justice, but Chris told me about Justice, and I'm like, man, this guy is a horrible human being, because so he ran a coal mining business and didn't even pay any of his coal miners, and it's just unbelievable to me. And then he gave $300 million to billionaire Bill Gates of West Virginia tax dollars, and then he also had the CCP come and extract oil from West Virginia. They tried, and they got caught. So, I mean, Chris can tell us all more about that. But Michael, I appreciate you speaking to me, and it's a pleasure.
You bet.
Thanks, Dylan. Thanks a lot. Michael, we do have one more hand up, but I will leave that up to you if you want to take another question.
Yeah, sure. We'll take one more, and we'll do this again sometime.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Nath, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Michael. Nice to hear from you. The quick introduction, we have exchanged notes and tweets for quite a while. My name is Purnima. I'm in Wisconsin. I just wanted to introduce you guys a couple of initiatives that I have been working on for quite a while. One is iExit, which is Indian American exiting the left. And the second one is Hindus and Trump. Both of them are pinned in your chat, and if you could follow, support, and if you'd like to collaborate, I would really appreciate.
Well,
And I think
that's good. That's really good to know. I am hard at work. I don't know what. Hopefully you feel the same way about Modi that I do. I'm very positive about him. I think he's the best Indian prime minister since the end of British colonialism, and I think I think U.S.-India relations are essential at this moment, given the CCP and what they're doing globally. And I'm doing everything I can to try to strengthen, relationships between the U.S. and India. And I'm finding the natural alliances are, with Indian nationalists, predominantly Hindu, who are, aligned with Modi or the BJP. And so I'm heavy into that. I don't believe again, it's another example of our movement not seeing the opportunity or the need to do this. But Modi's getting pressure from a lot of different directions, but he is, just as far as prime ministers go, since independence, I think the best that India has produced, and he understands the magnitude of this globalist agenda, how it would affect his people negatively, and how it would affect the world negatively. And I think almost certainly is I would like to see that bilateral relationship develop considerably, and maybe even into an alliance of some sort. We continue to be so obsessed with NATO. Our threats aren't really on the European landmass any longer. Not to say we don't have them, we do. But the primary threats now, I think, relate to what the CCP is going to do globally. I'm not just talking about in Asia and the Straits and in Taiwan, but the magnitude of the deals that they are cutting in South Asia, in Africa, in Latin America. They're putting together a new colonialism, and it's going to take more than just the United States to stand up to it. We can't be, and we're not standing up to it anyway under this president. But I envision a sort of global alliance that includes not just political people, but think tanks and media and academics who are aligned with the BJP and the RSS and other organizations in India who fully understand, even better than many of our so-called experts in the United States, understand the magnitude of the CCP threat. So the Hindu effort in support of Trump is hugely intriguing. I want to talk to you about that. Not now, but after. Yeah.
Absolutely, Michael. I was so happy to collaborate and communicate. In the United States overall, I'm sure you know that 90% or 95%, I would say, Indian Americans are Democrat voters. And they genuinely hate the GOP Republican side. I've done my best in terms of flipping a majority of them in terms of communication and why Trump is the right guy for America, aligning with our ideology and what kind of people we are. And, add to that in terms of illegal immigration that is happening to America, which is literally a slap on the face of our face. That was the folks that we came legally, stood in the line, waited for our turn, didn't burden the welfare system. We don't draw anything, in fact. And now this is the situation here. I think it's a travesty for this country. Hence, I think it's just not one issue or two issues, but I think we certainly have many many alignment. So I'd like to work with you on that, Michael.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a real student of both the history and current politics of what's going on with India and with the Hindus and some of the challenges they're confronting within India. as India evolves demographically. And I know they instinctually hold a lot of views that we share. And so both in a geopolitical sense and in a domestic political sense, with my enthusiastic, almost unmatched support for Trump from June 16, 2015 to now, I want to be helpful to anyone who's being helpful to him. He is, trust me, I've thought, that was a very generous introduction inside I think 2 or 3 things that I've gotten right in my career. I'm telling you, having worked in the White House, having worked with the president, there'll be some great Republican candidates. I'm not disparaging these individuals, but I'm telling you, they're not right for this moment, and they're not right for that office, right? So I'm not an enemy of them. I'm not saying that they're a problem. In many respects, it's great that they're in those positions. I went through the same thing in 2016 where I had to clarify to people, look, I'm not an opponent of Ted Cruz. I helped get Ted Cruz get elected. Ted Cruz at one point would have said without the Tea Party amendment, he wouldn't have been elected. So it's not that at all. And Ron DeSantis is doing a generally fantastic job in Florida as a governor. This is a whole other field and a whole other level that Donald Trump alone at this point is best qualified for. That's my view. And I'm not dictating, and trust me, these aren't deal breakers for me. I'll work with anybody who shares. My view is if you disagree with me on 95% of things, we'll work on the 5% we agree on. So it's not a deal breaker for me, but it is a studied conclusion of mine, and one that no doubt you've noticed, even in the last few months intensely, but all the way back to 2015 when National Review editor said I was handing the White House to Hillary Clinton in my support for Trump. That's what Rich Lowry said. Of course, I never got a phone call of apology for that, or even an acknowledgement that he was wrong and I was right. That's the way this field works, which is why we need to all be collaborating, because that can be pretty demoralizing when these people just move on after all these errors and insults they get wrong, and no one ever bothers to hold them to account, and they apparently feel no sense of personal obligation to acknowledge these misstatements. In fact, they continue to just go on making other bad predictions and things.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'm sure you know, Michael, that at this point of time, Biden administration and the U.S. ambassador to India is not really working right, and a lot of red flags are coming up. So we have been speaking out on that as well. But I'll stay in touch.
I want to talk to you about that. I'm very familiar with it.
Yes. Thank you, Michael.
You bet.
All right, great. Yeah, that's what it's all about. Kind of going back a while ago when Michael was talking about building these relationships we need, and getting involved in. And also, there's a lot of tools up in the Nest now. I don't know if the Nest is working for y'all. I'm having some troubles with it. I try to get Chris Rose's information up there, but I don't see it. Hopefully y'all do. But please, everyone, bookmark everything in the Nest and check out those sites. Check out our site, United24votered.org, and you got the precinctstrategy.com and Early Vote app with Scott Presler. So please check those out. Did you have something you want to say real quick, Brian?
Yes, if I may. Again, thank you so much, Michael. Purnima, welcome to the space. So grateful to have you here. We appreciate your patience getting to speak. I followed you. I hope you will follow me back. I am a part of this group, and I would like to reach out to you as far as working together on some messaging, et cetera, et cetera. Also, just so everybody knows, yeah, we're in a Twitter space right now, and it can be basically an echo chamber. But our group, we do have an actual website, so you can say we are worldwide now. And we are trying to be a centralized location for resources, messaging, those types of things, bringing people together. So definitely check out our website, united24votered.org. Also, reach out to us. Anybody up here on the top four, reach out to any one of us if you have questions, want to volunteer, have information to share, etc. Definitely, Purnima, we would like to get you involved with especially messaging and those types of things, reaching out to the various communities. Wow, this has been a fantastic evening, and so truly honored and humbled to have so many of you all in here with us. We hope that a lot of things have been answered tonight, a lot of great information. You can go back to our website and listen to the space. It will be posted on the website. But we're here for you, and reach out to us and we will get back to you. Let's come together. We have to come together. Period, paragraph. United we stand, divided we fall. Thank you all.
Thank you, Brian. You're absolutely right. And Michael, thank you for coming in and lending us your time this evening. Thank you for speaking and taking the questions that you did. Also, thank you everyone in the room for listening and for asking questions. Sometimes it takes a lot of courage to come up here and ask some questions, and we definitely encourage everyone to do that. And we appreciate that you do. So thank you. LD,
thanks for having me. Yep. You guys keep up the good work. I appreciate it. And good to close. Good to end with that quote from Aesop about "United we stand, divided we fall." It's so true, and that's hopefully the message that I've communicated here. Because the problem is ours to solve or ours to neglect, and there's a way to go about it, and we can do it together. But none of us can do it alone.
Thank you, Brian, for having me. I appreciate that. Looking forward to work with you.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Michael. LD, did you want to speak real quick?
No, it's actually Crazy Mama. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's hard to know when you're not speaking on the other account. But I just was going to tell Michael, thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to working with you more in the future. And the link for this space is already up on our library, on our website. I did that. I was multitasking earlier. That's already ready to go. So if anybody wants to re-listen to it, it's there. It's a lot easier than trying to go through our Twitter page to try to find it. So. But anyway, I just welcome everybody to come and come back next Tuesday. And also let us know if you have any volunteer information that you need help with. We are currently working on the volunteer page on the website. I'm gathering information and trying to determine how best display it on the website. So, but please just DM the page. United 24 Vote Red. I'll have another email address up on the page tomorrow as well, but you can email it. It's on the page, the email address. We all get those. Me and LD and Casey, who's been your host tonight. But anyways, we look forward to all of that, and we look forward to working with you all. So thank you guys so much for coming in, and I'm out. Thanks a lot, Casey.
Thank you, Crazy. Everyone, that is Crazy Mama 66. She's probably worked harder than anybody I know. You'll see her up in the listeners group. You'll see the @Crazy. Everybody, give her a follow. because she's put in a lot of hard work for everyone. So please do that. So also tonight, I would like to also welcome Chris Rose. He is a Senate candidate for West Virginia, and we had him last week on our space, and he was absolutely fantastic. So I would just like for him to give you his little, I guess his little spiel, I guess you would call it, and if you don't see his information in the nest, go into the comments and find it. And everyone, please donate at least like $10 to him. Donate it straight to him. Don't donate it. Don't donate to the RNC. Always donate to the candidate. You don't want your money getting split up and pennies on the dollar getting to where you actually want it to go. So right now, let's welcome Chris into the room, and if you would, just kind of come on, Chris, and tell us about you, please.
Hey, thank you, fellow patriots. Good evening. Michael Johns kind of stole my thunder there a little bit. He gave you the little inside scoop. I am Chris Rose. I'm a fourth-generation West Virginia coal miner, and I'm running to be the next United States Senator for the great state of West Virginia. And the reason why I took off the hard hat and the work boots and put on the suit and tie is not because the politicians have been doing their job, it's because they haven't. They've been selling us out to lobbyists, special interest groups in foreign nations for decades. And what do we, the people, have to show for it? $32 trillion in debt, our jobs overseas, we've lost energy independence, and inflation is crippling us at the pump, at your food and fuel prices, and in your energy bills and everything in your way of life. Your cost of living is going away. Your very way of life, providing for your family, is shrinking at your fingertips while they are negotiating wasteful debt ceiling increases without any meaningful spending cuts in return. That debt ceiling negotiations that's going on between McCarthy and Biden and how he's asking for so little is a perfect example why someone like me is running, because we, the people, have had enough. And you know what? Michael Johns is right. There is millions of dollars going to be pouring into this U.S. Senate race, and let me tell you why. Everyone in this country that is involved in politics knows that Joe Manchin's U.S. Senate candidacy is DOA, dead on arrival. He is the weakest, most vulnerable U.S. Senate candidate in the entire country. And let me tell you why, because everyone will say, oh, but he won in 2018. Well, that was true. So what has changed? West Virginia has become more red when it comes to voters in the last 6 years. A net gain, 220,000 GOP voters net gain over the Democrats in this state. Joe Manchin only won by 19,000. What else is different? That was 2018. That was a midterm election where, unfortunately, Republican voter turnout is a little bit low. But this time, President Trump will be on the ballot. He will be able to lift up whoever is the Republican nominee. Whoever wins this primary wins this seat. And so you always hear my opponents say the road to a Republican Senate majority runs through West Virginia. That's absolutely true. But here's the thing they're failing to tell you. Whoever wins this seat will decide what type of Republican majority that will be. Do you want one with Jim Justice and Alex Mooney, who are going to back Mitch McConnell and the Rhinos and Lindsey Graham and Shelley Moore Capito and Mitt Romney? Do you want that part of the party to just control the U.S. Senate? Or do you want the only candidate in this race who has vowed to toss Mitch McConnell out on his ass and force new leadership in the U.S. Senate? And that is myself. I'm the only candidate not being backed by Mitch McConnell, the establishment, or the anti-Trump globalist organization Club for Growth. So Michael Johns is right. I don't have the big establishment mega bucks coming in. But we, the people, and they ask about the donations, but even if it's not me, we, the people, can fight back against this, folks. Let me show you how quick and easy this is. If 1 million patriots around this country picked one MAGA candidate that was in my shoes, it was going up against this type of machine, you know how easy it is? If every single one of us skipped one cheeseburger, one trip to the fast food joint, or one coffee, one Starbucks, whatever you drink. I don't drink Starbucks. It's woke, so I skip the Starbucks. But I just use that example because a lot of people do. If you skipped it one time and gave that to that MAGA candidate, if 1 million of us did it in one time in 1 week, that candidate would have so much money, the establishment would piss itself scared. So that's what we got to do, folks. We have the power. We actually outnumber them. We just don't realize it. So many people don't realize it, that They're playing on a chessboard on our backs, but if we all just stand up and flip the board over on them, we got this. And, so many people get discouraged and think, well, my $5 can't make a difference. I just gave an example where it did. If 1 million people, we have 330 million. If 1 million people just gave $5, that candidate is funded for that primary and probably even the general. So I'm not necessarily asking for myself, but just giving you an example of, that's your $5 can make a difference. So I would ask, if you live in another state where you have someone like, let's say you have a Rand Paul or a J.D. Vance, and you have that solid Senate candidate, or you have someone like a Matt Gaetz or Lauren Boebert as your congressman or congresswoman, then I would encourage you to adopt a MAGA candidate in another state, because how this person votes, especially in this U.S. Senate seat here, this U.S. Senate seat here in West Virginia can decide how you live in all 50 states, because this seat could very well be the deciding vote in the U.S. Senate. We've seen it with Joe Manchin for over 2 years. And what did he give us? He gave us the Inflation Expansion Act, which gave 87,000 new IRS agents to go after you and your families at a time where you're already being crippled by energy and food prices. And it also increased inflation by doubling those taxes on coal, oil, and gas. So you want to talk about how we fight inflation? How about we elect a U.S. senator who's an American energy expert, someone who's lived through that war on coal, someone who knows how important these energy jobs are, not only to the states they're in, but the entire country, our electric grid, our energy independence, keeping energy costs low and inflation low, and national security, where we're not begging at the feet of foreign nations like Saudi Arabia for our oil when we have 300 years worth underneath our own feet, and we could put millions of Americans back to work with good paying jobs, and these jobs will create 6 to 7 more in the local economy. You want to talk about Reaganomics? You want to talk about trickle down economics? You want to talk about America's next boom? It's right underneath your feet. We just got to get the Democrats, the establishment rhinos, and Washington out of our way.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. Just to repeat what you said, if you have already a MAGA or a America First candidate in your area, and you're not like super worried about it because your area is covered, exactly what Chris said, go adopt one, go support one in another state or another count, or whatever candidates that you want to support. But Chris Rose is definitely 100% America First candidate. So please, everybody, check out his page. Go and donate. He said $5. I'm going to beg you to just donate 10. Just $5 more. Just if we can get $5 or $10 from just the America First Patriots, it'd change the game. It'd change everything. So thank you, Chris, for coming up and speaking, and we appreciate it. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak before we close tonight? LD, go ahead.
Yeah, all right. Just one quick thing, Chris. It may be an uphill battle for you and us, but this is a hill we're willing to die on. So we're going to support you. And just so you know, the person who had Steve Bannon's ear was our guest speaker, and that was Michael. So, and I know, he kind of took your steam a little, but, he's a realist, and he's been in politics since, back since Reagan. So, but he knows who you are, and you can see he's done his homework on you, and he knows you're an America First candidate, and he knows you'd be an asset to West Virginia. So we planted the seed in his ear, and we'll be talking to him, and we're going to see if we can get you on the war room. And, I don't know how we're going to do it, but all of us together. He did say we, and that's important. We together can get you a Trump endorsement. We've been sending out tweets to all the influencers we've had on, people like Laura Loomer and Matt Couch and all those big names, Roger Stone. We started some tweets for you yesterday, and we're going to try and link one every day for a while until you can get on the war room. And, we'll continue to support you after that too. So, keep up with your game. You're kicking ass out there, and, uphill battle, but we can still win, right? So anyway, thanks for coming back in. And everybody, please support Chris Rose.
And thank you for that. And I do agree it's an uphill battle, but keep in mind, folks, how these uphill battles can be won. 8 years ago today, President Donald Trump he only had 1% of the vote in the polls for the GOP presidential primary. So that hard work and that dedication, obviously he had the name recognition. But right now, like if Michael Johns wants to say, and I'm not knocking Michael, I mean, I know he's a realist and he's experienced in politics, and this is not a knock on him. But for any of them that think it's a foregone conclusion because the governor has this much name recognition or this much money, we're still almost a whole year out, baby. We got a lot of time to do and a lot of work. And don't get me wrong, that year will go by fast. But it's time to roll up our sleeves and get with it because, you know, there is that opportunity. President Trump, like I said, then again, had more money and more name recognition. I know that. But he had to win 50 states. Only got to win one. So that's the good news there. But that 1 year is still a window of opportunity for us to roll our sleeves up, work hard, and turn this thing around. And there's actually some polling data where we're winning. There actually is some of that. You know, WCHS out of Charleston, local news organization down there, ran a poll. 1,341 people voted. 52% picked us. Whether that's because they know about us or just because they don't like the other two, it's still a good building stone. And there's another internal poll that we ran where we're already beating Congressman Mooney. And that was actually ran by House of Delegate that's endorsed me, who does polling data. He called up over 1,000 registered voters here in West Virginia, and we were slightly behind Justice in that poll, but neck and neck. And this early out, that's a good thing, folks, because, you know, as I've worked to help get many other people elected, it's the first time my own name on the ballot. So overcoming that lack of name recognition is huge. You know, you guys willing to fight hard and get me on stuff like War Room, that helps. You know, also we'll be putting out contact information for producers. Not necessarily a big fan of Fox, but Fox and Newsmax will put up contact information out for people to hit their producers to ask for us to come on. And like I said, not a fan of Fox, but sometimes you got to go where the voters are. And if that's what they're watching, then we have to get in front of them. That's not an endorsement of what Fox News is doing. I think they're doing a terrible job, especially what they did to Tucker and Dan Bongino. But the stuff like that is tools we can use. We got to use them like a vessel, right? The same reason why we're using the GOP as a vessel, to save America. So I'm willing to use Fox News as a conduit to get to that West Virginian that's not watching Real America's Voice or not watching Newsmax or OAN. So that's some things, too, that you'll see come out. And we have phone banking opportunities. We definitely need people to help us make some phone calls. Call up West Virginia voters and let them know who we are, you know, and maybe even ask them for $5. But we definitely have that database information that we can share with volunteers that are willing to do so. And I see the Brain has his hand up there, so I'll stop talking so the Brain can get in here.
Oh, I apologize. There was no actual rush there, Chris. I was just, you know, as soon as if you want to finish speaking, go ahead, and then I'll jump in.
Sure. Yeah, so we're just looking for some people to help phone bank too, because West Virginia, you know, we got a good ground game for us, people knocking on doors and stuff, but we definitely could beef up our phone banking personnel, and that's for people that's out of state. That's definitely one thing they can do for us, because you don't have to live in West Virginia to call a West Virginia number. So anyone that's willing to pick up a few phone, you know, call a few voters and explain to them why we're the best choice in this race, we'd be more than happy to have you aboard.
Absolutely. And Chris, we need to talk to find out the best way to kind of trade information on that, so we can get that, you know, to our people as well in our group, so we can start making a few phone calls for you. Also, I see MAGA Warrior is still in here. I would really like to get you two kind of acquainted and known each other. So, you know, go ahead and message MAGA Warrior or vice versa. MAGA Warrior, you can go ahead and message Chris. Hopefully y'all get to talking, because I believe he's also got a line to Bannon's ear. So yeah, let's get that done, and get your name out there. I do believe once people know about you and once they understand that you're a true America First candidate, that you won't have any problem getting their vote. But I do understand it's hard getting your name out there, so we need to do all we can to help you with that. So with that said, go ahead, Brian. You can come on in.
Well, basically, I just wanted to say in closing, again, Chris, you're awesome. Love you, brother. We got your back. And again, thank you to everyone who showed up in our space this evening. We can't do this without you. And on that note, in closing, at least, God bless each and every one of you and yours, and God bless America. Thank you.
Absolutely. God bless America, Brian. Absolutely. Okay, so if we don't have any more questions and I don't see anybody requesting a mic, I would just like to thank everyone for coming in tonight and for listening and for asking questions. A lot of good information. I hope everybody will go visit the United24votered.org. It's up in the nest. Please bookmark that and check out Chris's space we had last week. It was recorded, so go ahead and check that out. It was an absolute awesome space. So please go and check that out. And if anybody doesn't have anything else, I'll wait a minute and then we'll go ahead and close. Okay, so we have one person coming up to speak. We'll just see if he wants to add anything real quick before we close. And Happy, I try to get you to come back as co-host, but I don't know if the room's glitching or what. But, well, I thought we had someone else coming up. There we go. Did anyone have anything else before I close? You can go ahead and raise your hand. No? Okay, well, everybody, we appreciate you and we hope you come back. Remember, it's every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Please DM us if you're interested in joining our group and getting involved. If you need information on getting involved, please DM us. If you have information on getting involved, please DM us. There can never be too much information, so we urge everyone that has anything to contribute to please shoot us a DM. Go to our website and please bookmark everything in the nest because those are some very, very good tools. And all it takes is action. Action. That's all it's going to take to turn things around is action. So, everyone think of that, throughout your week. And I hope everyone has a good week and God bless everybody. Okay, so we're going to close. Thank you.